you?
Good.
Yeah. What was that? Yeah. Forgot about that.
Yeah, I was gonna make sure it's these.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, he wants to, where do you want to? Where do you want to sit?
Yeah, I could send you
Over the other side.
Hey, Jack.
Erica said hello. Good. You want to sit in the third row there?
Yeah, it's basically really just had.
Yeah.
I was graduating.
You want to sit in-
You'll start in the.
Good thing.
Enjoy the process. Oh, man, so this is a great ages right now. It's still. Yeah. It's the old, it's my oldest grandson's, oldest grandson is just very good, well, you know. Years.
Isn't it? Yeah, actually. Mhm.
I have to be careful, but the wind, I have to be careful when I go up the driveway, I go to the driveway, the worst.
Yeah.
This is the house. You know, because sometimes I try to. get
Yeah,
close.
yeah.
Thank you. Change the time. Yeah, so, you know, I had 3 girls. You got to start home. And my bank at college. So I get to some.
I thought you would execute a copy of the K-9 agreement, right? And the resolution, the K-9 agreement? Okay,
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. It's his sister. Juliet needs a grant all of it. 6. Yeah, right.
I like your hearts.
huh?
I like your.
Thank you.
Very appropriate.
Thank you. Yeah, I had to do something Valentine-ish.
I know, I, on the other hand, did not.
Hi, how are you?
I do,
Good,
like your dress.
thank you. I don't know if you would need a mouse also, but I have the mouse hooked up to the laptop just in case. Like I'm gonna get rid.
Is it remote?
Huh?
Is it remote?
Yeah, it's wireless.
Is it
Yeah.
remote here?
Yeah,
Oh, that
Yeah.
was perfect.
yeah, okay, good. This other gentleman needed it for his, and I said, wait a minute, I was gonna keep in my drawer, it's my stash, but.
Excellent.
This door doesn't go anywhere, does it?
No, you can put that there, that's fine. Did you want to put it in the room or?
No, it's okay, I just put it in that.
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah. Hmm.
I just see. Oh, okay. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, no. What's that?
Yeah, okay. We still have March to get through.
What's parade day comes March 3rd?
And March is a crazy month, so you never know what it's gonna do.
See this here? That gives you.
Can you send me that? Oh, you sent it.
I could do the network, so.
Yeah.
That's the one where you try to get on 23 and.
Yeah.
The youngest there that are.
You said that?
That little one's a new little child. In the air outside.
Hello, Sarah.
Huh?
Have a look at it.
Big.
There's a little LJ up here. We're gonna break the 15 back.
What?
Break 15? Yeah.
It's different.
You're saying that last way.
Yeah.
40,000 miles. You say you drive.
Like your mom.
Surgery.
He jumps in. Got to go. 50.
I was about to yell at you, so it's a good thing.
What?
I said I was about to yell at you. I was like, I haven't done it.
Oh.
You're on a crutch, you know what you're moving at me.
He's probably a freshman.
It hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just know it's a little bit about.
Fifteen. Well set. So, yeah. It's good. Yeah, sure. Thanks, Bill. Excuse me.
Oh, Bill, you know?
Yeah. Take on everybody else. So.
All of those. All of those. No such thing. It's like a lottery. Some of them are gonna be positive, some are a little higher.
Yes. No, I went to see him.
No.
Good. I went to see him today. You know,
You got it. Oh, that's them.
and I have one in my car.
So.
Sell them? No, I can't sell them. It's against the law.
Yeah.
Erica?
Oh, Erica loved her heart.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, don't worry about it. I forgot, I just. Nah, I realized when I got home, I got here, I thought. Captain, how are you?
Great.
Captain Mike Cassidy.
Feel good on. I'll give you this.
Okay, we do that next couple days. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Also need to stay confined.
Got COVID test, you can't.
I know, right? Don't run around, it's my coat. Other than maybe a t-shirt, it counts, it's red. Hi.
Good evening. Oh, it's just a little meniscus tune-up. Sprayed and
Okay.
about 40,000 miles on it. So that really tweaks. So it's gonna be better.
No, that's, I'll put it here.
Yeah, it's nothing major. I mean, it's not even.
No, we're not.
A good preference.
Must be good.
Yeah, yeah.
No. Up, bro. All right. With the project, good luck.
And that's where this people will be.
Is that change here or something?
We all have, I haven't looked at it yet.
Okay.
Really. I'm not sure.
About. Everybody on Wednesday, little favor at the end of the night, trying to find you. Yes. That whole card, it's just, you just put your pen away. Oh, the pattern pen? Got it, yeah. What about our name tags?
I like my.
I'm gonna put it away right now.
You know what, I don't know why I don't do that.
I don't know, but I'm thinking. paint. I should have that a couple of years ago. Yeah, that's fine.
And then what do you want the pen here?
Yeah, just put it in a little, a little basket. That's
I
fine.
can do it now. too.
Yeah.
Music.
I bring my own.
Oh,
pen.
okay.
Yeah, so we got that done.
Say every time I go back and forth, my
Yeah.
office like 5 times.
Just leave them in there. If we need them, we'll take them
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
And
like
if we don't,
That would be a little thing, like, you know,
Right.
like, let's be a little scratch.
No, I see this is here. Is something changed on it?
It's just,
Sometimes.
oh, well, the times haven't changed, they just, and that's the little more, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
I just, that's what I thought. That's the only thing I saw.
I didn't have a chance to email that to everybody, but I did. So.
Well, hopefully it's even less than that.
Yeah. That'd be nice. So we'll see what happens. Carrie, thank you for taking care of that for me.
Yes, I didn't come in till late.
No, that's fine, that's fine. Yep, me too.
The report. So we together for the.
I proceed.
But I said, look, I said it's that, like.
Get your hair. It looks very nice. I saw that after Wednesday.
So it's all right, but I, you know.
Yes.
Looks very nice. You're welcome.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Al.
Are you gonna put a big heart?
And we clean up. There we go.
All right.
Good. I see Jack too.
No, I appreciate that.
Hi, Bill. Good. Did you get a chance to see that?
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, forgot something. So you went home. Yeah.
Especially on crutches.
Yeah.
It was red. I know. Your Valentine's red, it's sticking on.
I had no red. I looked and I own no red. And I certainly don't own pink because of my undertone. No,
You can't see the
I
red.
can't. I can do red, but I cannot do pink. It makes me look kind of red. My jacket is red. I'm not gonna sit with my jacket.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
Erica's got the red hearts.
I mean,
Well, they're red, they're pink.
I would expect. to know that.
nothing less for, exactly, just for a holiday.
That's what I would say.
Lawrence.
I just like stick to red either, like, I like color. As long as it doesn't knock out too, that's all right.
And on that note, I would be like, no, I won't be. No, I won't be doing any.
Oh, gosh, no, the ones that come in and they know how to set up their stuff, I love them. Please do.
Well, yeah.
Would it be easier if I move that mouse to the podium? Okay, thanks, sir. Yeah, I can get the power podium. Thanks.
Good, how's it going?
I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna talk about the trees that are gonna get planted. Yeah.
I had mentioned about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm giving them some serious problems. Yeah.
Yeah, when I say next day. Oh, no.
Yeah, they did, function, and, but, funny, I was surprised, yeah, it was weird, but it seemed like it
Great.
So we don't raise the tie, It's hard. I had the flu since I started. I got out of bed yesterday. That was
No,
good.
want a map? Maybe I'll put a face covering?
No, I went to the doctor. I'm okay now.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Want some chicken soup?
What's that?
Want some chicken
My
soup?
wife is a bit. She's been very nice.
Oh, has she?
Yeah.
Oh, that's we'll get sick every once in a while. Get some special
Poor kids
attention.
and sick husband.
Oh, yeah.
She's having a great time.
I bet. I was gonna say, shut it down.
Well, now my boys are sick.
But that.
Now my boys are sick.
Oh,
My youngest one at home.
I see. Oh, okay, you didn't bring it. Because-
No, my youngest one at home from school.
Okay.
She was sick last week. They hit me this weekend. And my wife told us all to get the flu shot. She's the only one that got it. And I told her it's a hoax.
You said it was.
Yeah, famous last words, right? Just like that, like that's not really big in the hoax. I just don't like needles, so I tell her it's about to go. And that was a really terrible. But I'm really lucky she's taking care of it.
Yeah, you are lucky. I feel locked in the basement with a can of camphor and a hot pot.
Yes. And one spoon. Sit down and eat up. I'm just gonna.
Right, right.
Okay, let's start, please. Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America,
to
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I wish to announce that the 48-hour notice is required under the Open Public Meetings Act, was emailed to the Asbury Park Press, the Co-Star, and the New Coaster on December the 7th of 2023. That a copy has been placed on the bulletin board in the borough office and that a copy has been filed with the municipal clerk. As a courtesy to the public, this meeting may be attended via Zoom. If for any reason the Zoom portion of this meeting fails or is disconnected, the in-person meeting will continue and action can and will be taken as long as, providing there is a council quorum. Ms. Noble? Here. Mr. Gubatose?
Here.
Ms. Mahoney? Here. Mr. Weber?
Here.
Mayor Fox?
Here. Good evening, everybody. Just 1 second and get myself organized here. Okay, thank you all for coming tonight. Again, I just want to do a little preamble that we started council meetings with a positive message, and although we should welcome disagreement, we certainly want to keep things constructive. We ask people to try to engage in a productive and positive way, and we'll ask everybody to also gauge their tone going forward. We're all neighbors. Okay, as previously communicated, we're trying some new approaches for our meetings for process for 2024. This is our first workshop / departmental readout meeting. Unfortunately, one of our agenda items for tonight, the Public Works, two things were kind of operative. First, for those who don't know, our acting road administrator had a death in her family this week. She's on her way back as we speak. She's been out since last Thursday. And Monday night, the Public Works Supervisor really came in with an unavoidable family commitment. I just felt like if we were missing both those people, it wouldn't be appropriate. Can you hear me?
No.
You can't hear me?
It is.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, we're gonna push that to the 13th, but I've been told that what they're calling themselves, the core four, are gonna do a very good job. That would be Pat Allen and Biagio Cafone, Andrew Neves, and Dana's actually gonna come and help us, understand all the inner workings of Public Works. We're also gonna continue to try to tighten our clock management, but ensure everybody's heard. We'll ask you to work with us on that in the coming weeks. So with that, the next agenda item is, I believe, council comments. Yes, mayor and council reports. I can start. We budgeted around 10 minutes for that. Let's see how we do. I have just a couple comments. First, I want to thank Public Works and other public safety departments for their work around the storm this week. It was kind of a in-betweener, but we fared pretty well. A little bit of snow on the ground, but the plows we got out just to make sure, we have a safe condition. So we thank them for that. We are completing, I thought it would be appropriate to let people know if we're completing the final touches and have a phased reoccupancy of Biazi, that's outlined. I think everybody will see that it is better than ever when they do see the inside of the building. The first move is community development, which is zoning, planning, code, and they're going to start moving on Friday. Meals on Wheels will be later next week, if not the following Monday, and then our February senior club meeting will be on the 28th in the Biazi building. We're going to continue to work with the Historical Society on plans, both interim and longer term. We've had one or two meetings with Paul Nishampkin, also met with the Historical Society on Monday. And so we've got some ideas on how to maybe optimize and as we move forward. Last thing is just check the website for library and recreation upcoming events. And with that, that's my comments. Councilman Weber.
Okay, thanks. Hey, everybody, happy Valentine's Day. Love being here. Love that you're here. I'm gonna start off by making a comment on the agenda. I just want to go on the record and say, I don't actually agree with the part of the agenda where it says that the public comments are limited. I mean, this one's 15 minutes, this one's 20 minutes. I don't know what we're gonna do if more than, 3 or 4 people or 5 people want to speak. So, I mean, I know we'll get your questions answered, but, I just don't exactly like that. I will say the Fletcher Lake Commission, they skipped their meeting in February, but they are grateful that previously they had asked for a sign about the motorized vehicles, not going over the footbridge. They got their sign. They're very happy about that. They've actually requested another sign because we already have an ordinance. You're not supposed to feed wildlife. And apparently some people go and feed a lot of wildlife, and that's a bit of a problem. So they've asked for another sign, and for some reason they're being asked to pay for it. I don't really understand it, but this last sign, we just did the sign. I don't know if this made its way up to you, Mayor, but not really understanding the arguments that the Fletcher Lake Commission themselves have to pay for a sign that's just deals within the ordinance that we already have. So hopefully that will work itself out. I don't have anything about shade trees. I'm gonna let Councilwoman DeNoble do that. So that's the extent of my report.
Okay, great, thank you. Councilwoman Mahoney.
Okay. The Environmental Commission met on February 5th, and they are currently in the process of completing Bradley Beach's Sustainable New Jersey certification, which recognizes municipalities for implementing practices that lead to cost savings in water, energy, and garbage to work toward a sustainable future. The certification will also allow Bradley Beach as a municipality to apply for sustainable New Jersey grants and programs. The commission is developing new educational materials for covering plastic film, street sweeping, recycling, and bulk pickup to distribute at the Green Fair, which will be held on April 21st. And they're moving ahead with their Adopt a Drain program, which will be introduced at their next meeting to be held on April 1st, because they are not going to hold their March meeting. And the Land Use Board will have a meeting tomorrow, February 15th. And that is my report.
Great, thank you. Councilman Guvitosi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The 2024 budget, we've talked about this a little bit. I just want to remind everyone that normally it would be due, at least a preliminary draft, to the council end of January. At an earlier meeting, we pushed the deadline for delivery out to no later than February 27th. An update as of today, the council has not yet seen a draft budget, but the hope is, we haven't had an update recently, but the hope is that at a minimum, we'll get it on the 27th and hopefully maybe a little bit earlier. While we're on the topic of budgets, the 2022 audit, I'm told by the mayor, is almost complete. The council was just notified recently that a audit closeout meeting where the auditor takes the administration through their findings for the 2022 year is tentatively scheduled for next week, next Wednesday, February 21st. And one of the council members will represent, the rest of the members. So again, we can only have 2 people in a meeting or else we're deliberating, which is not allowed by law. So I volunteered to attend. If one of my other colleagues would like to attend, I'm very willing to negotiate that, but at least one of us will be there for the meeting, hopefully next week. I do have a police report. And thank you, Detective Lieutenant Browning. The police arrested a subject for receiving stolen property, and they also arrested 2 individuals on outstanding contempt of court warrants. So fortunately, a relatively calm month, although I'm told that the police in fact are very busy. Unfortunately, crime is very low, so at least for a month.
There's a reason for that. Thank you, guys.
That great force we have. The council, working with the mayor, is still fine tuning the BBBCA memorandum of understanding. Hopefully next week when our business administrator returns and Mr. Cannon is available, we'll fine tune that. It's really important for the council and the mayor, the governing body, basically, to just all agree that, we've got a really good working contract to make sure that we can support the BBBCA as much as we can. And then finally, the Sylvan Lake Commission, their next meeting is February 21st. I have follow-up with them that I will owe the mayor and our business administrator after that meeting, just to confirm members' status of how many years into their membership they are. And I should have that at the end of next week. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. The Shade Tree had a meeting on February 7th, and they had 4 applications. They approved them all. Looks like there are 8 trees being removed, but there will be 13 replacing those trees. The tentative date for the planting is May 4th. If you are interested in getting a free tree in front of your home between your sidewalk and the street, you can fill out this form. It's free. You'll get like a 6 to 10 foot tree, free. Or if you'd like to have a tree to honor someone, you fill out this form, and that helps subsidize this program and we can make Bradley Beach greener and better. And the tourism had their meeting yesterday, February 13th. They are looking forward to the Shamrock Hunt on March 6th. Let me see. Oh, I think it'll be the week of St. Patrick's Day, so around then. And also the Green Fair will be April 21st from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And just a heads up, they're planning to have the best summer ever. And then I went to the Board of Ed meeting, and the Board of Ed was presented with their audit for the fiscal year of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. Last Tuesday, and received a glowing
report on their financial status. They were audited by HFA, who presented a slideshow of their work along with praise for the board's administrative team of Superintendent Michael Heidelberg and CFO David Tonzola. And we thank them for watching our tax dollars and creating such a wonderful environment for our Bradley students. We're still waiting for our borough audit for the calendar year of 2022. I think we can anticipate to see that next week, and we look forward to seeing that. And one more thing, January was School Board Recognition Month, and Michael Heidelberg had a statement I'd like to share with you. The Bradley Beach School Board has shown great dedication and commitment to ensuring the success of students in this community. They have consistently made decisions that have positively impacted the educational experiences of students, from implementing new programs to providing funding for necessary resources. The board's hard work and dedication has not gone unnoticed by the community, and they should be recognized and celebrated during School Board Recognition Month. And personally, I would like to thank these hardworking volunteers. They are appreciated and they are admired. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll now go to workshops.
Oh, you know, did you do it before? You went first, sorry, I just want to interject, fire
What
first
did
aid.
what did I cover? What did I cover?
Yeah, I gotta check my notes. Sorry. Fire and first aid, we decided we're gonna report out monthly. They had meetings, I went to both of their meetings, but instead of reporting every meeting, it's gonna be every other meeting, so just want to say that, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so our workshops, we have really two, the next two agenda items are really more interaction. Workshop on fallen heroes, Councilman Gubitosi, I assume, is going to lead. We've got that budgeted for about 10 minutes, which includes some public back and forth questions if appropriate. On presentations and bids, as I said, we're gonna forego the public works, but we have BBBCA town survey, CME projects, and then we have two proclamations that we'll be reading. On the presentations and bids, the interaction with the BBBCA and CME will primarily be with us at the council. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Gubitosi. I think it's up on the board. There we go.
We do. We have a PowerPoint presentation, and anyone who might want to follow along, there are some scattered hard copies of the presentation in the audience. I expected to have Mr. William Duffy join us this evening. He's been just a wealth of information for me on this topic. Unfortunately, he's helping his wife through an illness and he's unable to join us tonight. So I will commandeer his presentation. But I met Mr. Duffy through basically through his Facebook posting. He, if you're following along, we could turn to slide 1. And a quick background on Mr. Duffy, who insists I call him Duff, is that he lives in Brick Township, Vietnam era veteran. I don't believe he actually served in Vietnam, but he did serve during that time period, 68 to 71. Been law enforcement for 40 years. And what's probably most important is he has made his passion the historical research on fallen heroes. Focusing primarily on Monmouth County. He has already compiled 19 biographies of Bradley Beach's 19 individuals who lost their lives during the war. We'll talk about that in a minute, but there's 7 in World War I, 11 in World War II, and 1 gentleman in Vietnam who died in service. He's made it his basically life passion to research this. He posts these things on Facebook, and this is how I first connected with him. He's also worked with many other municipalities, including some of the ones listed here, Bayhead, Point Pleasant Beach, Point Pleasant Borough, and a few others. On the next slide, if we can go to that, are just some examples of banners that some towns around New Jersey use to recognize their fallen heroes. Brick Township, on the left side of this slide, is actually representative of banners that Duff helped Brick Township create. And then there are just a couple of other pictures from Hazlitt and Hanover, but many towns in New Jersey do recognize their fallen heroes in this manner. On the next slide, there's a couple other forms of recognition. There's a brochure that Mr. Duffy's put together. And inside this kind of a brochure, I mean, it can be designed however the borough would like. But in this form, that might be, in our case, as many as 10 to 20 pages. He profiles all of the individuals who died in service. And you can see a little excerpt of one of the brochures that they did for Point Pleasant Beach. You can also certainly have monuments, as we have in the center of this page, our own World War I memorial. And you can have monuments in a lot of different shapes and sizes. The far right is just a boulder with a bronze plaque that also recognizes fallen heroes in another town. What I really want to get to is the next couple of slides, because Bradley Beach does have, as I mentioned, our own fallen heroes. Individuals who were residents of Bradley Beach, went off to serve, and never returned. We have a World War II memorial pictured on the left. It's labeled Veterans Memorial Field because that's where it's located, that facility near the rec center. And at the base of that World War II memorial, you can see in the center is a separate memorial piece of granite, basically, that we've dedicated to our fallen hero from Vietnam, Stuart Melnick. On the far right, you can see our Riley Park World War I monument. In talking to, I reached out to Duff because I said, what do you think? You've done all this research on Bradley Beach and other towns. What do you think of what we do, and what can we do to improve our memorialization of these individuals? And he did have very specific recommendations. I'd like to share them as part of this workshop and invite the public to provide their reactions. But he said, first and foremost, he really thinks we should have more of an effort to have all of our recognition located in one place. So on Memorial Day, when we're recognizing these honored dead, we're not traveling around, for example, going over to Veterans Park, as well as Riley Park and so forth. In fact, the Stuart Melnick Vietnam Memorial, that was originally set up at the beach, I'm told. And there was a major storm 10 years, 15 years ago, whenever, I'm not sure of the time frame, but that basically wiped out that area of a park dedicated to Mr. Melnick. And that's when we moved this granite block to the Veterans Field. So he suggested, he said, if he was us, he would not move those monuments. He would leave them where they are. They're already labeled Veterans Field, or at least the World War II memorial is. But he said he would possibly consider having us create a separate monument of sorts. Doesn't have to be particularly large, maybe a brass plaque that identified again the 11 World War II dead soldiers, as well as the one Vietnam death. Just have a smaller plaque, perhaps somewhere at Riley Park, alongside or nearby, or in the general location of the World War I memorial. He said bringing them all together would make it a lot easier for us as a community to recognize these men. A minor thing, I guess, for our DPW, he did suggest that our World War II memorial is a little tilted. I didn't notice that myself, but to the extent it is, we can certainly correct that. Maybe the more different, departure, I guess, for Bradley Beach would be the thought of creating 19 of those banners that I illustrated earlier, one for each of our Bradley Beach fallen heroes. And rough pricing on those, I have done no super detailed investigation, but I've talked to a couple of entities. The pricing varies based on quantity and size, but roughly the numbers should range between $50 and $65, around $1,000 to $1,200 for if we recognize 19 of our fallen heroes. Also, for probably under $2,000, Mr. W said he could create a brochure or work with us to help us create one where we could use, at no charge from him at all, the profiles that he's developed for our fallen heroes. The next slide just kind of encapsulates what I was just talking about. If we were to create a smaller memorial for Riley Park, that would just commemorate World War II and Vietnam, as well as doing the fallen hero banners, as well as doing the brochure, the high end of the cost range might be $10,000 to $12,000. And that would be if we had a significant cost invested in the new memorial edifice, stone, whatever it might be. There's a very good chance we could do that much less expensive. A bronze plaque by itself might be $5,000. But if we can mount that, if DPW can help us perhaps with some sort of a little construct, there may be minimal cost for the borough. So 10 to 12,000 is a kind of high end. And then we have to make decisions. And keep in mind, we're trying to do this, if we can pull this off, do it by Memorial Day of this year, May 27th. The decisions we look at include the design and the location of the banners, the design and location of the new war memorial, possibly utilizing DPW. And we're going to talk about this a little later today, establishing a trust for private donations for fallen heroes. We're not thinking about spending taxpayer dollars on this, but rather asking for private contributions. One of the things we have to figure out is how we're going to go about asking for those donations. One thing the governing body has asked me to convey to everyone this evening is that the 5 folks up here have already pledged $1,000 towards that goal just from our resources. So that is the general plan. It's not in the PowerPoint slide, but in the back of any of the paper documents, there's actually Duff's write-up, the bio he put together of Mr. Melnick. And you get a sense for the amount of depth he's done in terms of researching our fallen heroes. So this bio would go in a brochure if we were to put one of those together. Again, I had hoped Mr. Duffy could be here just so he could share experience or two of what he's done with other municipalities. But I was personally just overwhelmed by all the effort he's put into his research and what he's done with other towns. And I've had an opportunity to bounce this off of everyone up here. We're very supportive trying to bring this forward to just get Bradley Beach that much further down the path of really being able to appropriately recognize these individuals who have given their lives in service of our country. But we also wanted to give you, our residents here and on Zoom, a chance to opine and provide any feedback you can to us. So that concludes my presentation.
Okay. Yes. Oh, I mean, it's okay, yeah. That kind of jumps.
That's all good.
Thank you, Val. Paul Shampton, 411 Lane. Duff had approached me actually about 6 months ago. I don't know if he mentioned it to you. And I was remiss in really not moving this forward faster. I'm glad you have. I'd like to vouch for his research has been fantastic. And if you've actually seen his postings, which he's been posting, and also I've been reposting on the Historical Society website, and they're all up there. The number of photographs and articles associated with each one of the fallen heroes is really quite an immense amount of research, and he's really done a great job. I'm not sure if I agree with him though on not moving the monuments. I think it would be really good if all the monuments were in one place in Riley Park. But that's just, you know, it might save some money, and also I just think it would be appropriate to have them all in one place. And certainly the Melnick monument certainly should be improved. It's really, it's almost invisible. So I had no idea where it was on the beach. I have not been able to find exactly where it was, but I think it might have been near the fountain originally.
Yeah, there's a similar, Paul, there's a similar, about the same size for one, we have 2 fallen policemen through the years, and
Yeah.
the promenade, the flag at the promenade, there's a very similar kind of a memorial to one of those police officers, so I know that
Yes, I
one's
know.
there. So there's you know, there's a scattering around town of deals there, so like.
Yeah.
So you're probably aware of that.
I'm sure that we have not on Memorial Day been actually going down to Veterans Field to
Right. No,
lay a wreath there, and that's always bothered me, so.
Yeah.
I really think they should all be in one place.
We do have, as the mayor said, two fallen hero police officers. This clearly is focused on the military, but it was Bud Cousins and Jack Wright are the two police officers.
okay, thank you, Paul. Anybody else? Yes.
Jake Cohen, 612 Third Avenue. I just had a comment about the picture of the World War I monument. Would it be possible to mount additional brass plaques underneath the ones that are there and not create another edifice in the park, but, you know, improve the one we have? You know, that way, all those names would be at one location for review by the public. It's just a thought, but thank you very much for putting this together. Thanks.
Who else? Okay, thank you, Councilman. This is, I've read a number of, as Paul has and others, Mr. Duffy's biographies of these folks, and it's really compelling, and he does a great job.
I'll just make a comment, Mr. Mayor. I too like the idea of having all those monuments in one place. The problem is that World War II monument, at the very top, it says Veterans Memorial Field. So it's sort of like, if you take it away from the field, then it's, you know, I think, I like your idea, Paul, but I think one way or the other, we're probably making a new monument, so it's tricky.
We'll figure it out.
Yep. Okay, we'll move to presentations and bids. I thought we would start with a little bit bottoms up here. We have two proclamations. I thought we would read those first and then go to BPCA and then CME. We've got about 60 minutes budgeted for that, and we're pretty much on course right now. I can start with the first proclamation, proclamation in memory of borough resident Harvey Rosenberg. People can hear me. Whereas on behalf of the borough of Bradley Beach, the mayor and council wish to record their deep sorrow for the passing of Mr. Harvey Rosenberg on December 31st, 2023. And whereas Mr. Rosenberg was a beloved husband, father, grandfather, friend, resident, and community volunteer, and whereas he was a full-time resident of the borough of Bradley Beach for over 20 years, vice chairman of the land use board and co-chair of the Memorial Day Committee, and whereas Mr. Rosenberg was a Bradley Beach lifeguard in his youth and a graduate of Ohio State University, whereas his life in the borough was dedicated to the best interests of the community and his family, and whereas the borough of Bradley Beach, along with Mr. Rosenberg's family, are blessed to have known him and been part of his life, now therefore it be resolved in recognition of Harvey Rosenberg's many contributions to our borough and its citizens, the governing body of Bradley Beach do hereby express our deep appreciation for his dedication to the progress of this community and extend to his family our sincere sympathy upon his passing. Dated 14th of February 2024. Harvey's two children, one lives in North Jersey and the other in Florida, could not make it. We're going to be formalized the proclamation, and I'll be sending them a letter, and I've been in contact with them when Harvey passed, because he was a very active community member, and it was very sad, but Harvey lived a full life and did a great service for Bradley Beach. So we all miss him, and hope he's having a good round of golf wherever he is. Yes. And I didn't know Harvey was a lifeguard at one time. Yeah, I'd like to see that picture.
Yeah.
Okay. The next is a proclamation on Black History Month. We're halfway into the month, but we wanted to make sure we had that proclamation read, and I've asked Councilwoman Mahoney to read that for us so that I'm not capitalizing the time.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be honored. Borough of Bradley Beach, a proclamation in honor of Black History Month 2024. Whereas the mayor and council of the borough of Bradley Beach take pride in recognizing February 2024 as Black History Month, celebrating the many notable contributions that people of African descent have made to the state and the country, And whereas African Americans have played significant roles in the history of economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development while working tirelessly to maintain and promote their culture and history. And whereas since 1976, Black History Month was formally adopted to honor and affirm the importance of Black history throughout our American experience, which dates thousands of years and includes some of the greatest, most advanced, and innovative societies that we can all draw inspiration from. And whereas since 1976, every American president has designated February as Black History Month and endorsed a specific theme. And whereas the theme for Black History Month 2024 focuses on African Americans and the arts and is infused with African, Caribbean, and Black American lived experiences. And whereas in the fields of visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, folklore, language, film, music, architecture, culinary, and other forms of cultural expression, the African American influence has been paramount. And whereas, because of their determination, hard work, and perseverance, African Americans have made valuable and lasting contributions to the country and state, achieving exceptional success in all aspects of society, including business, education, politics, science, athletics, and the arts. And whereas this observance presents a special opportunity to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and to honor the many Black leaders who have played a part in the progress of our community. Now therefore, be it resolved, the governing body of the Borough of Bradley Beach do hereby proclaim February 2024 as Black History Month in the Borough of Bradley Beach, dated this 14th day of February 2024.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Glad we were able to get that in before the middle of the month, get that out there. So appreciate it. Okay, we'll go to the rest of presentations and bids. We have two tonight, and they somewhat overlap, a little bit of them. The BBBCA Town Survey and CME 2024 projects. I think we have Ben Matlack here, and I think, Ed, you're going to cover this presentation. I think Paul is out of town, and we've worked in a collaborative manner, as many council members have said, with BBBCA now for a few years. I guess 3 years now. Is it 3 years or 4? I can't remember. 4 years. I think this might be the second or third survey that the BBBCA has done. When they do those surveys, they do come to us, say that they think they can bring something to the table. They help us, we give them input, and then they really basically transact it. Oh, I didn't see Andres here too. I'll just at this point be quiet and let Ed and Andres take over.
Technical capabilities.
Very good. Ed. Very impressive.
Got first time.
We're pretty impressed.
I had a nervous twitch there. We've had a few faux pas with our.
Yeah, you're hired.
Not my first rodeo. First, on behalf of the BBCA, thank you so much for having us and giving us the opportunity to speak on behalf of it. The materials that I've got here is a little bit dense, but I'll be as quick as possible as we go through it right now. Back in the fourth quarter, in the October, the November timeframe, we conducted a survey through the borough itself. And I'm going to share that with you here. We had 175 respondents, and that was a mixture of both the BBCA, that and the mayor also had advertised this a little bit in his series of weekly notices. We had 175 different respondents, and you can see in the lower left-hand corner of the materials that are up there that it was a nice mixture of about 150 odd residents. And then we had a series of businesses that responded as well. And if you look at the type of demographics associated with the
folks who responded, you can see a very nice mix of tenured folks in town, either, whatever it might have been. It's not just near-term folks. Our question number 3 is around what was the top priority for the mission to be fulfilled in town itself. And if you kind of read from the bottom up, it's a mixture of appearance, 30 odd responses out of 105 responses were associated with the appearance of town. I'm going to talk a lot about that as we walk through the materials here itself. Had some statements around leadership and taxes, not part of the survey itself, inclusivity, events, and overgrowth and parking were a series of those types of responses that came out. And I'm going to thread an awful lot of points on that as we go through it. Question, by the way, this was a 26 question survey. 3 of them were verbatim results, and the other 23 were radio dial or button questions themselves. And you'll see that come out in just a few moments. Question 4 was around how satisfied are you with Main Street? A very dense slide here, but I'll just quickly walk you through it right now. Good news is that 71% of our respondents were either very satisfied or satisfied, with Main Street itself. And you can see that 70 of those responses that came out talked about the restaurants, the businesses, and the shops themselves, delighted with those. 25 called out Main Street and the walkability of Main Street, the town, the quaintness of the town itself, and 14 specifically called out Riley Park. I'm not going to read every one of these as we go through it, but some of the key takeaways here were, around, the walkability of town itself. We're not commercially overrun. And on the right-hand side, you can see a couple of constructive verbatims, if you will. We still have unsanitary and dirty pavers in town. We're going to talk a little bit more about it as we go. They don't want a cookie cutter kind of town, right? We don't want overgrowth in the town itself as well. So that's sort of some of the things that came out on that particular piece. Related to question number 6, what should the top improvements be relative to Main Street? And you can see that in this particular case, 61% of our respondents, and anything that was high scoring over 50%, I'll talk to you a little bit about more as we wind through the materials themselves. 61% of our respondents said that the top priority for Main Street was around appearance itself. And you can see some of the verbatims here. Again, I'm going to go a little bit more deeply into that, but I would just call out redesign of facades and things of that nature. Relative to parking, maybe more parking on Main Street, however, no garage or an eyesore for a garage on Main Street itself, right? And then you see other things that we talk about related to safety and mobility. Questions number 7 through 10 were all around beautification itself. And you can see that the top responses in those areas themselves were around what do they think? This isn't that we don't have it, but it's high value. Have things like cleanliness. 86% of the respondents said cleanliness is important in town. 54% of the respondents talked about disposal units, and 11% of the, 69% talked about trees and plants. Big theme that comes out across all of this is the respondents were really looking for a cohesive plan around what are we doing in town, right? What are we doing about beautification, curb appeal, our streets, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we wind through the material itself. I'm from Brooklyn. My speaking too fast. Am I good?
No, you're doing good. You're doing
Perfect.
Right. And that's not an excuse. I just happen to go that fast, right? Hopefully you can all hear me well as well. Good. Diversity itself. So you can see this as well. 63% of the respondents talked about diversity is important. I think the key takeaway here, 2 key takeaways, is that let's continue to bring English and Spanish speaking community members together itself. Let's attract more diversity of businesses on Main Street if we can do that. And it's very welcoming, and we should spend time welcoming both newer residents and long-term residents related to diversity. On the appearance side of it, high value are in the areas of stores and windows and signage, and again, 56% of the respondents on question number 14 talked about trash and recycling are important to the town itself. I'm going to expand upon it, very greatly on this next slide here. So take a look at this. This was our highest scoring response overall. It was around appearance. Fairly dense slide. I'll let you read it yourself, but what I would really call out again is create a cohesive plan for curb appeal. Preserve the town's charm and quaintness.
in town itself. On the appearance side, clean up the greenhouse itself, right? The greenhouse is a little bit run down at the end of town. What are we doing about that? Lighting poles and the excessive wiring on the poles are a distraction. And we need a uniformity of designs and poles. We have about a 50-50 mix in town. I did a manual count of single lamp and double lamp poles in town itself. And then I would just call out to your attention as well, relative, this is again in the area of appearance itself, but things around amenities. And some of those also cited, as you can see in green on this particular chart as well, that beach appearance in summer points where it came out in the theme, not just on Main Street itself, talk about the ability to, we need to improve the beach umbrellas themselves. We need to promote more dining outside that ties itself back to Main Street as people are at the beach as well. Safety. That's not to say that we don't have a safe town. Thank you, Captain Arnold. You know, but what they cited on this particular case is that, you know, we should be enforcing things like no riding on sidewalks. We should be, you know, upgrading things associated with the crosswalks and hatches. We've got problems in those areas themselves. And you can see that 51% of the respondents thought that police presence was important, very high value. Again, that's not to say that that's not there as much as it is, it's of high value to the community itself. In the areas of service associated with that, you can see very high scoring. 68% of the respondents said that events in town are very important, high value. You can see that on the other side, one of the questions that we raised was around babysitting. Is babysitting something that's important to our respondents associated with it? You can see it was the other way. In so many words, it was not the town's business to worry about that. We should be able to care for our own children. And then sort of a mix of, on the trolley side, you know, folks saying it's important, maybe not as important, but let people fend for themselves associated with doing that. And then on unification, you can see, you know, again, it came out a little bit on some of the statements that I made earlier, that lamps and matching poles at 64% were important to the series of constituents that responded to the survey. Sidewalks and pavers came back out again. Where does that leave us? I'd like to just at least offer a few recommendations for your consideration. Again, dense materials themselves, but I would call out that a lot of this cobbles together into a very common theme, you know, which is, you know, what are we doing relative to the beautification and the enhancement of Main Street over the next couple of years? Things along the lines of tying together the disposal units themselves. How do we hide trash cans, you know, and make that a little bit less visible, if you will. Things along the sides of what are we doing about enforcing police, enforcing police to refrain from riding on sidewalks? Should we be in fact promoting a new bike safety program itself? And so those are the series of recommendations that came forward. And what I would add, just sort of in closing for your consideration here, you know, whatever you do as a council, you know, going forward, you know, the belief is that you probably have a 1 to 3 year plan ahead of you relative to enhancing Main Street itself. And if you took a look back at what I was suggesting to you before around appearance and parking, beautification themselves, there are things that we can do right now in the borough that I think we are doing in the borough. And those things are around store signage themselves. So can we create a campaign relative to 2 weeks ago, we heard from Vin Gopal and Arnold.
no.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you. Around how we can, in fact, secure funds, or the business can secure funds. How do we promote that particular aspect of making sure that they're familiar with that? That's one that we think that we can do right now. Striping. Parking spaces were of concern to folks. I think striping as an opportunity on Main Street has been discussed for a period of time. I know I live on 2nd Avenue. Councilwoman DeNoble, I know you live on 3rd, and the striping that took place there, although it was objectionable to me for the first week that it was down, you live with it. You learn how to, it actually promotes new spaces.
So you were one of those objectionable.
No, I didn't publicly say that. I just deterred me. I know. But, you know, it was an eyesore to start, but after that, it's not. It's fact of the matter is it created.
Yeah, it's a change.
It was a change,
Yeah.
right? But you can do that on Main Street and create better parking on Main Street itself. So what kind of decision needs to be made on that? And then we're doing things within flag. What I would draw your attention to though is from the papers on down through street lamps, trees and beautification. You know, some 4 years ago, the walkability study was done in town
With Rutgers and.
with Rutgers and others, right?
Department of.
And at that time, it talked about how do we in fact enhance the pavers, how do we do the poles? And it came up with a series of recommendations. Fast forward to 2 years later, you know, when CME and Associates came in and they did their own series of results to you as well and recommendations. And what you see on this particular chart here is a summary of what they proposed 2 years ago. Those are old statistics. This is draft only. And what I would say is that, excuse me 1 second, let me just take a drink.
Sure.
That's okay. As opposed to looking at the citizens of the community and other businesses in regards to either raising taxes or assessing businesses themselves. Why don't we do something similar to what Manasquan did with regards to going out, looking at grants associated with what they did for upscaling their Main Street in central, in Manasquan itself. How do we in fact go back to the New Jersey State Commissions and secure funds associated with the beautification type projects that we need to do? And working your way up from the bottom, you need to make a decision around what are you doing with pavers or sidewalk itself? How does that get funded? Everything else that's on the bottom of this list associated with trees and benches and recycles are all layers on top of that, right? And so the decision needs to be made around how do we in fact secure funding, whether it's through those agencies and or other things in the budget within the next few years. And so what we offer you here is just sort of a straw man of a plan that says, can you in fact secure funds, start from your pavers up again, no taxes on the citizens for themselves, no assessment on the businesses. How do you secure funds associated with doing these types of improvements? And then what can the community do in support of that? And then I'm open to any questions that you might have from there.
Yeah. First, thanks. This is a great summary. I've just gotten down to things I want to mention. You mentioned the funding out of Manasquan, and for those who don't know, Manasquan just recently got a $2 million grant. And it's actually the same grant that we applied for a couple of years ago as part of, we did the New Jersey, the Rutgers, I think it was DOT study. And it was prior to before my time, but it was probably a 30-page comprehensive set of recommendations, as you said, that, you know, it had bump outs, it had cross streets, it was a very, bike lanes, it had a number of recommendations. We actually made that same application, and I think I want to say the number is like many hundreds of towns apply and very few that they give a couple a year. So Manasquan was very successful. Now, I think Manasquan's engineering firm, if I'm not mistaken, is CME, so we should be picking their brains and
Fox, it is.
and working
CME
this.
that did that. We should work with them and see what they did, what was the secret sauce that they had in
Right.
regards to being able to put forth maybe a better application than what we had in 2022.
Yeah, and then my next comment would be that the new mayor in Manasquan, Mike Mangan, I've been speaking to him on, we both have some issues with one of our ordinances that we're working through kind of jointly and trying to bounce some things off each other. We can certainly get some time with him and because prior to being mayor, he was council there, so he's got some experience on how they've got this. And we can also talk to CME. So those are a couple comments I have. Any other council want to comment?
Yeah, and this is great and great presentation. I really appreciate this. Quick question for CME. I don't know how striping costs us nothing, but maybe Ben can address that when he gets up. Because that does say nothing, right? Striping 0. I don't know how that works, but
That's not on them, Councilman Weber. That might have been my error.
Okay.
That's something.
so it's not, so it costs something. Okay.
It would cost something.
I want to make a comment about trees though, because I feel, lots of unification on Main Street in general would be good, whatever you're talking about, if it's benches or garbage and recycling bins or trees. As our ordinance stands right now, like just like homeowners in the rest of town, they're responsible for the tree that's in the right of way. Okay, and my feeling is, because the town has sort of unofficially taken control of those trees, at least a couple times since I've been up here. We've basically paid the county to come and trim all the trees on Main Street. And we didn't ask the store owners, property owners for anything, we just did it. I would like to make that official, and let's just like say, hey, we're taking over the Main Street trees. Because if we're going for a unified look, I don't think we're gonna get there if there's 75 different property owners that are all responsible for making decisions about the tree that's in front of their property. I would love it for the town to take that over, and then we could make things like this happen a lot more easily. You could extrapolate on that and say that's true for the whole shebang. But I think the magic,
When you say the whole ship, what do you mean by? the whole
meaning
ship?
that if you did that for trees, you could say, oh, well, we're gonna do, whatever. Benches, like anything that's in that right of way, is technically, I mean, it's the responsibility.
I wasn't sure you were talking about trees or Main Street there.
Yeah, well, I want, trees on Main Street for sure, and I've suggested that to the mayor, quite a while ago, actually, so I would love to see that. With respect to cleanliness, I'm not surprised that people aren't that really high. But I think we have to think about like, okay, if people value that so highly, when's the last time anybody ever, like, are people told by code enforcement, or I don't think the police, but like, there's a bunch of litter in front of your store, on the sidewalk between, have you cleaned that up? I don't know that our code enforcement, maybe they are, but I'd want to learn more about that, because if people are ranking it so high, like, let's have the town, actually enforce that, because nobody likes it if you're walking down Main Street and you see a bunch of litter in the street.
May I speak? Thank you. Cleanliness was a high value to them.
Right.
What came out within the survey itself is that we have a tremendous amount of uneven pavers related to that cleanliness. We have warped sidewalks and, you're waffled all through, and they're dirty, right? So you need a unified plan. You can't just look at one store and say, I want you to clean up or fix your pavers itself, because someone might have a different series of pavers there, right?
I wasn't talking about papers, I thought there was something about litter and like.
No, nothing on the litter specifically.
Oh, so
Cleanliness is a high value, because it's important to do that in town, make sure the town is clean. The one thing that came out relative to that was around the bins themselves, where they could be a little bit more hidden or disguised, if I can use that term, more better. This better. But nothing specifically around there being a trash problem in town at all. So I hope I didn't represent that in any way.
Okay, well, when I see cleanliness, I think people, they would be talking about litter and.
I think it's more like a power washing thing where they want to see clean
okay.
sidewalks.
One question, I was curious, I know this is a survey conducted of both businesses and residents.
Yes.
Do you have a rough split? Like,
Earlier on, it was 150 residents, the 175 that responded. And so there were about 15 to 20 businesses, and some of those were a mixture of business and residents. So it was 150 out of the 175 were resident.
Okay, and so now hearing that it's a relatively small cut of businesses, my follow-up question isn't as significant, but I was curious if you saw differences between the weightings of these value items, business versus resident.
Answering your question directly, no. The data itself didn't lend itself to understanding how whether a business or a resident responded and broke it out that way.
So number one, I should have said this first, thank you, because I think this is great, and I know you're presenting, but I know you've got a couple of colleagues in the audience, and thank you to the BBBCA for pulling this off. You said something interesting, I thought earlier, that it kind of starts from the ground up, from the pavers and so forth. And I just want to plant a seed in your collective brains that I'd like to look at it starting below the ground and up, because I'm looking at Mr. Shuck in particular, who for many years has been saying, boy, it'd be great if we could get some of the overhead wires underground. I don't know if we can do that. I don't know what the cost would be. I certainly don't know if we could do it without some tax implications for our residents, and then it becomes how much can we ask of our residents outside of whatever grant money is available. But I'd love it as you continue to explore recommendations and bring them to the council. If you could expand your scope to evaluate what you think could be done for segments or all of Main Street in terms of bringing wiring underground. Part of the reason I say that is anyone that mentions it is going to tell you it's $1 million a block, or it's $1 million for, you know, the east side and another $1 million for the west side for one block. But what they may not realize is at some point, we're gonna have to dig up all our sewers on Main Street, as far as I can tell. We're gonna have to replace sewers. A what better time to look at moving wires underground if we rip open the sewers. So if you continue this great work, but even expand it a little bit, I think that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.
I just have one question.
Sure.
I would also echo what Councilman Gubatosi said, that when we say you say you're gonna start from the pavers up, if we're gonna have to redo the sewers, I think we need to include that in the plan, and also putting the wires underground, but this is very useful. But the one thing, and I talked to Paula Gavin about this, and maybe you can help me understand. But under appearance was trash and recycling, and under beautification was disposal. And when I was one of the people who did the survey. I got really confused about the difference between those two. Can you explain the difference between appearance being trash and recycling and beautification being disposal? Because when I was answering those questions, I didn't understand, I got lost then. I was like, I don't know what I'm answering.
I'll be frank with you, I didn't set up the survey itself.
Oh,
And
okay.
how it was categorized initially. But I think at the end of the day, it's still talking about the need to have a cohesive plan associated with, you know, what we're doing with, as I said before, disguising trash in town itself. And then there's a little bit of a mix in there around, you know, keeping the sidewalks clean themselves. And I hope I'm answering your question.
Okay, because there were so few, they were very pointed questions. And I thought they were great questions. I thought it was a great survey, but then I said, oh, I was like, what is disposal then? But anyway, good survey. I appreciate your answers and seeing how everything broke down. But I just didn't know if you could tell me what the difference between those two is, because I was confused. But, you know, but thank you.
So one last statement, and thank you as well. So is it that you will look to appoint leadership towards some of these, or, you know, that is our recommendation as well? You know, which is, how do you plan to sort of take that and then, you know, action some of that, if you will, on your own behalf? Not on the BBC Days behalf, but on your own behalf.
Yeah, no, I
Where
think,
does that go over the next 1 to 3 years? This is
yeah,
the third time through
it's
survey.
it's a very good question. And I actually think when we get done with the next presentation, it's actually going to bring some of that together, because the action piece of this is we work with our engineering firm and we work with the council to say, okay, here's what's possible. I think it is, to your point, it's a 1 to 3 year plan, but we need a plan. We need a plan. We need, you know, what's the funding, and maybe the things that we try to get funding on, we push out. The things we can do ourselves in the short term, we bring in. There's any number of ways to cut a plan like this, a 1 to 3 year plan. I think that's what we have to really kind of come back on and say, how do we want to approach this? So I think I think CME, I asked you to lead with that and do the second piece second. You may want to listen to that, because I think it's going to dovetail, and I think that'll generate, I think, more conversation amongst us on how to approach this going forward.
Mayor, one question. What was the name of the entity that we applied to and that Manasquan ended up getting them? Who was that? Who's giving away that money?
It's the state, well, it's CME, you guys know?
I don't know exactly which funding.
Sort of CDX.
But I can find out.
Was it the Economic Development Authority, the one you applied for?
I don't know if it was EDA or it was.
No,
DOT.
This was like a couple of years ago, Greg. We applied for a Main Street grant. It was like $1 million, right?
Oh, no, we applied for a couple million.
Couple million. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we should find
Well,
out who that is.
and when they gave us the result, when they turned us down, they basically, I'd have to go back to the email, because it came from Jerry Frieda at the time. I want to say there were over 100 towns that applied, and I think like 3 or 4 got it. So it's a pretty tough one to get. Not to say we shouldn't be going after it every year. We're taking any plan we get, enhance what we have. Because even that, the plan from 3 or 4 years ago, I think what we're gonna find is there's a lot of that's still very operative.
I'm just gonna say, I feel like you should probably just apply
Yeah,
same
just apply.
every year.
Yeah.
See how we do, so.
Yeah.
all right.
Sooner or later.
On behalf of the BBCA, thank you for your time and thank you for your support.
Yeah, you're gonna stick around?
Yeah.
Good, because I think you need to hear the next one.
Is that a question on this, or do we have to wait till later?
Wait till later.
Be specific for this?
Yeah, yeah.
So they'll be here till the end.
Well, they're gonna be, the next agenda items, agenda questions, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Ed. All right,
Yeah, if it's a workshop, here's your question.
it's not a workshop, it's a presentation in bits.
Okay.
Yep. Um, yes. Ben.
One second.
Same time.
Was DMT. That's the one I'm sticking out. I remember. Mayor, may I ask one question? I'm confused. When we get to the individual resolutions, will that be included in the, what's now coming up as the public comments after the approval of minutes? Or will each resolution have its own public comment moment?
No, we don't have public comments on resolutions. We,
So if we have a question about about the resolutions that would be addressed in the upcoming comments?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
okay, this is Ben Matlack from CME. He's been our point guy for the last few years. And Ben's gonna cover 2 things, or, well,
I have a couple of things to cover. First one, I'll jump right into it. Streetscape improvements to Main Street. Ed, thank you. That was a great presentation. And a great lead up to what I plan to discuss. As we just heard about the BBCA's survey, a lot of good information there. Some of the main takeaways for me, and sorry, I was provided a copy of your survey early on, so I got some of the information from it. A lot of the recommendations from the survey are similar to that 2020 Rutgers study. It's called the Main Street Walkable Community Workshop, referred to as the Rutgers study. That was funded through the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, which is an entity of the DOT.
right.
And the one of the conclusions was that walkability and uniformity of the streetscape is important to the residents. So that 2020 study discussed that set very similar to the BBCA study. It was asking residents to provide input. The residents said that there were pedestrian and bike experience is inconsistent and underwhelming or unwelcoming. And that's due to missing pedestrian crossings, low visibility at intersections, and sidewalk quality. These are important issues to residents. We have uneven sidewalk pavers. We have there have been accidents from in the 2020 study. It looked at the 5 years prior involving vehicle, pedestrians, and bikes. There were 12 accidents on Main Street in that 5-year span. The study recommended bike lanes and pedestrian safety improvements, and then standardizing streetscape elements. Very similar to what Ed just discussed. There are mismatched benches, mismatched light poles, mismatched street trees. So that's something that is something we want to consider for Main Street. What we first look at is the available right of way. You know, you only have a limited amount of space to fit everything in that you want. It's roughly about the same size uniformly throughout Main Street. North of Evergreen Avenue, you have 70-foot right of way. South of Evergreen, you have a 66-foot right of way. You have some minimum widths that you have to consider. Minimum required sidewalk width, 4 feet. And considering layout of Bradley Beach, the fact that your businesses, restaurants are right up against the right of way line, you really need a little bit wider than 4 feet, for, getting in and out of stores and still allowing access along the interstate. Your minimum required bike lane, if we want to, add bike lanes, is 5 feet where there's on-street parking. And then a minimum travel lane. Now, these are minimum standards. Obviously, the wider we can have, the better. Minimum travel lane on Route 71 is 11 feet. This is the existing condition out there. This is, again, pulled right from that Rutgers study. You have 15-foot lanes right now, up and down Main Street. That is a travel lane for vehicles, and it has sharrows painted on the road. Sharrows are share the road symbols, allowing vehicles and bikes to share a lane. We have parallel parking on both sides, and then there is sidewalk as well as I'll call it a planter strip, where we have trees, benches, bike racks, trash cans, that kind of thing, on each side. The Rutgers study looked at a couple of design alternatives. The first one was utilizing the existing pavement width you have and modifying it to shrink the travel lanes from 15 feet down to 11 feet, and taking that extra width and creating one bicycle lane in one direction with a buffer. It maintains the existing parking lanes, and then it maintains the existing sidewalk widths. Second alternative they came up with was removing a parallel parking lane and creating 2 bike lanes up and down Main Street.
So either on the east or west side of Main, eliminating parking.
Yes. Obviously, parking is a consideration, and it's something that was important to residents in this study as well as the BBBCA study. So that's definitely something to consider before making it, moving forward with any one option. Some of the other things that were discussed in the Rutgers study were safety improvements. This is an example of a bus bulb. Creates kind of a safer mid-block crossing. It could house a bus shelter, an area where people wait for the bus, so they're not standing on the sidewalk and they're not in the travel way. And it allows an area for buses to pull in and pick people up. Similarly, curb extensions. This is a way for eliminating site visibility issues. It shortens your crosswalk distance, so it's safer to cross the street. And that's one of the recommendations that was discussed there as well. With that first alternative, having one lane in one direction, you obviously don't want just to go one way on Main Street. You want to have options to go another way. So what they had originally looked at was the possibility of adding a bike lane on Hammond Avenue. As you know, Hammond Avenue is one way, so that would be in a one-way direction going southbound with the one-way direction on Main Street going northbound. And then there are a few streets, cross streets in between that could facilitate interconnectivity between those 2 one-way sections. So you can get around town a little ways. Then we look at the streetscaping itself. As you heard, uniformity of the streetscape is important. Revitalizing the streetscape is a way to establish uniformity within the borough. You can, say that this is the light pole we're going to use. This is the model bench that we're going to use going forward. This is the type of trash can we're going to use going forward. The sidewalk shown there is just what was in the Rutgers conceptual study. Personally, I kind of like the papers. Although I do know that there are some tripping hazards out there, that's something that could be corrected by a streetscape project. Conclusions, obviously, we want to try to make the borough more welcoming to pedestrian and bike users. We just talked about streetscaping, beautification of the borough by streetscaping. You know, just creates a more attractive downtown area, encourages tourism, and increases business. And then safety upgrades where they're appropriate.
What was the last thing you just said, Beth?
Safety.
Safety.
Oh, safety, okay.
Yeah. The bus bulbs or curb extensions are safety upgrades. Also upgrading curb ramps to be ADA compliant. And then eliminating those tripping hazards, updating sidewalks. These are all safety upgrades. The next step, I think, for the borough is if we want to advance this project, we look for, we're continuing to look for funding sources, of course, and I'll give you an answer on which grant that was that Manasquan got.
So you didn't work on that yourself,
I
Beth,
did not work on that myself,
but you can find out
but I will find out
who did.
who did and everything there is to know about it.
Might be that might be something to bring that person in with yourself and have a
Sure.
conversation with us, yeah.
We can prepare a preliminary improvement plan that would incorporate some of these elements from these studies, and then investigate the feasibility of some of these recommendations. You know, for example, that bike network, investigate if bike lanes are appropriate on each one of those streets that was identified. I know the sewers were mentioned. That's is my understanding. I know the borough has a phased sewer plant. The sewers on Main Street were phase 6 of the sewer.
Phase
plant.
last.
Yeah, the last one.
Yeah.
So that is likely several years away. But you know, obviously anything can be adjusted. But that's where that was in that phasing. And Al, you were kind of right on the money, about $1 million, maybe $2 million a block for putting utilities underground. This is, you know, what the utility companies have told us in the past. So, you know, if you do all of Main Street, you're talking in the tens of millions of dollars for that one. And that's all I have on Main Street. If you want to have questions on that, or before I move on?
Yeah, I think that'd be good, because I think well, you've got a couple more pieces, but
Couple more pieces.
I think we're in good shape for time, yeah.
Yeah.
Good question, Mayor. So ADA compliant curb ramps are you saying are none of them compliant? Because I feel like since I've been sitting up here, we just redid all of the curb ramps, like not too long ago.
There are definitely some that are ADA compliant. Some of the newer ones that are constructed are. There are still, I believe, some old ones that out there that have not been upgraded. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just follow, thank you. I love this study, the results of the study when it was done. I love seeing this, a lot of the slides that you've recaptured for us tonight. The one thing I mean, I know I'm stating the obvious when I say this, but I don't want to have, you know, curb bump outs and bus bulbs and curb extensions and new pavers or concrete, whatever, put in over the next 3 to 5 years, or Samir was saying 1 to 3 years. And then 4 years from now, we tear everything up to the sewers. I mean, we got to stop doing really inane things like that. So I know people will tell us, any one of us, you as our expert, it's going to cost $1 million, it's going to cost $2 million to move these lines underground. And I'd say, yeah. All things equal, starting where we are today, you got to dig everything up, you got to pull it all underground, then you got to cover it all up. My point is, if it's going to cost $2 million, how much is it going to cost if we ask you to do it while we've already ripped up the streets. And I don't know that anyone is yet, and I think you're the guy to do it, if yet, I don't think anyone's asking that question. So so I guess my question to you is, we want a vision, but we want it like a phased vision. I'm speaking for myself, but I like to think others would agree with me. A phased vision that says, let's assume we want to do all this stuff. Well, we're not going to do it until we've done what we need to do with the sewers. So maybe step number one is phase 6 sewers becomes phase 3. I don't know. Maybe it means we start Main Street sewers at the north end for 2 or 3 blocks 1 year. Then it do the next year, 2 or 3 blocks, work our way south, whatever. But I think we need a more comprehensive plan than just what I love this, but I kind of see this as the end result, the end vision. And would you be in a position to help us plan the phases with and without moving wires underground? We may ultimately say we can't do it.
One question I would have to build on that is, if you took them, say it's $1 million a block. Can somebody profile that for us and say, the $1 million is the following? It's $400,000 of excavation, $300,000 of taking wires down, and $200,000 of whatever. That could help us understand, what's in that $1 million a block. And then, to the councilman's point, I don't think we want to do something where we're doing a redo. I think we got to kind of look at the cost benefit, what's the cost and what's the benefit? Is there low hanging fruit? The idea of, if we see empty tree wells, to me, that's low hanging fruit. Uniformity is low hanging fruit, in that it's not going to cost us a significant amount. And then we get into the key question around, what do we do with our sidewalks? We need to do something, whether it's repave with pavers, tweak what we have. If you really take a hard look, they're pretty tired and they're pretty beat up. So we have to look at that. But I think it's a matter of looking at the phasing and really ensuring that we've got a plan. And the other is around funding. If the high ticket items, we're going to really have to search for funding. We don't want to fund this ourselves via bonding. Do we take the high ticket items and backload those in the context of going out for grants? That here's our plan, we're the early phases where we're not spending a ton of money, but on the back end, we got some money to spend on big ticket items. So I think that's a little bit of input. I got a couple of just bullet points here. And did you want to?
Sure.
Okay. Well, one, I know you know this, but for the benefit of everybody here, this is a state road, so we've got to work with the state also, which is always fun. There's a project that's been languishing on Memorial Drive. Memorial Drive behind us, that way, thank you, is going to 2 lanes, 2.5 lanes. Meaning if you go to on the other side of 33, Asbury Park, you'll notice it's a 25-mile-an-hour kind of 2-lane, but it has the center turn things. Memorial Drive is funded to do that and is going to do that ultimately. There was a view early on when I first came into this job. I met with that group, with the county guys and a couple of DOT people. The view was, I was looking at it from a parking perspective. It goes to 2 lanes. Can I get on the eastern side of Memorial Drive, a set of parallel parking spaces, maybe in the middle of town? So people park their car, walk across the railroad tracks on each one of those blocks, and they're in town. There's a lot of, that's not a high priority for them. I can tell you that. It would be a fight, but I think we could potentially get some parking out of that. If we could get that and trade it for one side of Main parallel, which I would think would be the west side, maybe there's a trade-off there. I don't know. Maybe that's part of the plan, that we start really pounding and working hard with the county guys, with Commissioner Arnone and those people. The Hammond option, from my perspective, the Hammond option on bikes is I think it's a viable option, but it's, again, it's a change. And it's gonna take a lot of change management, if we wanna go to two bike lanes, you know. And we gotta figure that out, but that's, it's an interesting idea that I saw in the last study, but. Getting bikers to really do that would be interesting if we could do that, but when you really get to heavy duty green lines, this is your bike lane, you know, maybe people tend to follow it. There's probably a few people on Hammond Avenue that wouldn't like to see that, but you know, maybe for the greater good, it's a good option, but I'm just not sure. So that's just a couple of random thoughts I had, the rest of the council.
I just want to ask one other question, Ben. This is nothing new, right? This is pretty much the same thing that you had presented to us. I don't think you stood up here and presented this, but I know I gotta, you know.
Yeah,
It's like a year and a half, how long ago it was, but it's the same thing, right?
it was, I gave a presentation to the council in 2022,
And you dollarize some things there.
yes, you saw kind of a rough breakdown of our, you know, the cost estimate that was put together in 2022. I think at that time, there was not gonna be any changes to the road, no striping, so I think that's why the dollar amount was zero.
Thank you.
But, yeah, this is kind of a presentation of this work, because I understand that it's the council's desire to advance a project on Main Street. And, you know, we want to just bring this to the forefront and, you know, explore what the options are, how to move forward with it.
So I guess. My last question before maybe turn over to the public, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if we're gonna allow public comment on this or not.
What's up? He has more to do. He has more
All right.
presentation.
Then my last question is. We're all gonna sit here and say we all want this vision articulated, defined. We want to, I imagine we need that in documentation form. To bring to various grant funding opportunities, right? I mean, we can't just go knocking on doors saying, hey, we're going to develop a plan. We really need a plan. Correct? Before you
Yeah,
can apply.
Yes, to some level of detail, there has to be some kind of a plan.
Which the 2022 plan was a line item plan, not 30 lines, but it was 15 lines, and it was, I can't remember the amount, was it 1.3 million or something like that?
I think 1.5 million or 2 million, something along those lines.
Okay.
For
So-
maybe half of the town.
Yeah.
But do we need to be talking, not necessarily tonight, but in the immediate future, talking with CME about updating that plan, something, giving us a tangible document that we can then bring for.
I would agree.
And updating that would include at least scoping, this notion of bringing wires underground. And again, we almost need an A and B with and without wires underground. And that would mean phasing, not only for funding, but phasing for construction. And I can't imagine we were saying earlier, 1 to 3 years was probably, 1 to 5 years. Like a 5-year plan. So if we were to, it's not official tonight, but in the very near future, if we were to ask you, CME, to build a plan, I mean, can we ask you to give us a financial proposal, what that would cost to give us a 5-year plan?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think most of what you had in that plan, Ben, is correct, and I just don't have it in front of me, in front of you, right? You just happen to have it in front of you. Is, yeah, no, that's perfect, thank you. Yeah, it's 18 line items, but what I was gonna bring up, and this is helpful, is it covers a lot of the things that were in the survey. And it covers the prior survey, and it covers a lot of stuff that was in the Rutgers study. It's some walkway stuff, some construction, some, brick pavers, stuff, some concrete sidewalk interspersed in there. But street trees, street lights, benches, planters, trash receptacles. It covers a lot of that. So I think if we can get that inventory and say, we've got everything we think to cover. Now, then you start looking at cost benefit. What are the things we can do as we're applying for grants? And we can demonstrate some progress, but also have a plan we're all locked in on. So thank you. I think that approach kind of gets us get some legs on this, which was a difficulty that we've had. That would be my opinion. Thank you very much.
But I have a question, and this is a small question, like, so the bike lanes. And I agree, like, people, you know, when you mentioned the accidents on Main Street. Awful, and, you know, it's, part of it, I'm sure, has to do with the sightlines. One, I would wonder whether the bike lanes would exacerbate the accidents that we have on Main Street, because people would just be like, I'm in a bike lane, and I know bikers have right away, just like cars do, but because now we have lousy sight lines, you know, cars are gonna age, you know, each inch out to be able to see, and the bikes are gonna be coming, and also, what benefit is it? Because, you know, then they go right into Ocean Grove, which goes right into the bigger road, and then they go into Avon, which doesn't have bike lanes. Is it worth it to have a bike lane when you've got it for a mile?
There's a lot of energy at a county level of getting bike lanes all over. the
Okay,
place.
so like we would be kind of like the paradigm.
Yeah, and Ocean Grove's working on this right now
Okay.
on Ocean Ave and coming up Lake Terrace potentially. That's kind of where their
Okay.
brains are.
It's just my concern.
No,
is that we're gonna have more
it's-
accidents, and is there a way to better improve the sight lines? And so that, you know, we could keep what we have, people could bike, and people just aren't gonna get hit by people
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah.
One of the things that was talked about in the Rutgers study is that New Jersey is one of the first states to adopt a complete streets program. And Monmouth County has adopted the complete streets program. Several counties have, and several municipalities have, to do things like this, to kind of encourage multimodal travel. Which is cars, pedestrians, bikes, scooters, whatever. So that it's in line with the vision that the state has and the county has. To do something like
Yeah,
this.
and
And it's, I'm not pushing you to say you have to do it this way or it doesn't work. It's worth exploring that option.
Right.
Perhaps the best way is the way that already exists with the share the road, the sharrows. But it's, in order to figure that out, you have to explore what different options you can have. And what, you know, the best fit would be for this road.
so you said before, and I just get me to the right numbers. Right now, the lanes are 15 feet, driving lanes,
Yes,
and an option is to go to 11, which gives you 8 feet, right?
correct.
If you start playing with, using just one bike lane, you do the green, heavy duty green, where people realize this is a bike lane. That opens up some possibilities. Now, I'm not saying, you know, and the other thing with 11 versus 15 feet is that a calming mechanism. The cars go slower and they've got less lane. So there's a couple of potential benefits of that, and I'm not a proponent one way or the other right now. I just think about the possibility, saying we've got X amount of real estate to deal with. How do you manage that real estate? You know, the idea of taking one side of the street and removing parking, you know, people's heads will explode, but maybe on the west side, it's not so bad, because how much parking is it? How many spaces are on the west side when you take Riley Park? When you take, you know, some of those businesses, maybe it's not too bad. Maybe there is a possibility we could figure that out. I don't know. Maybe we free up spaces in other ways. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have other stuff you want to cover?
I do, yes. Second. Happy to report. Happy to report that the borough received an asset activation grant from the NJEDA, which is the Economic Development Authority. It's a $50,000 planning grant. It can be used for the pre-development planning, design, and permitting to activate underutilized public assets that benefit their communities and the regional economy. So the grant application that was applied for was for this building. 54 Ocean Avenue North. It's right next to the playground, on the promenade, in between Park Place Avenue and Ocean Avenue. Ocean Park Avenue. And the application was, to use the building as a museum for the Historical Society. It would also include the installation of a new restroom building, next to that building. And then retrofitting the existing building, as needed for the intended use. We actually have a meeting with the EDA next week just to discuss the execution of the grant agreement and what the next steps are. So this is in very early stages right now. The grant was just awarded, and that's what we're working on right now.
So you're meeting with EDA next week, just to kind of get the ground rules set with them on developing this plan, okay?
Correct. Yes.
Who else in that meeting, yourself and them, or?
I think it's
Meredith?
me, Meredith, and the member from the EDA.
Okay. Okay, I don't know if there's any questions yet.
Question. And you may or may not recall this, but I just want to make sure for the record that, you know, that someone says this. When the council approved the application process for the grant, there was a good amount of discussion that we said it cannot be limited only to the Historical Society Museum. And we were told, I think the grant was like being submitted the next day or something, so there really wasn't time to adjust the language in the grant application. But for the record, I just want to confirm, we were told, and I believe it's still true, that this money can be spent to look at different options for this building, not limited to the Historical Society Museum. Is that fair? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fair to say. We're not shoehorned into one use of it. It's just that was one of the options that was talked about in the application. But that's what we're gonna, pursue.
And so, for example, so many folks, I don't know what the answer is. I'm not sitting here telling you the right answer is X. But so many people have said they love to see bathrooms. So many people have said they'd love to see a more of a retail concession, like ice cream sales or something like that. Something without cooking, without venting of whatever, grease traps and all that stuff. We had a problem a couple of years back where there was at least interest by a restaurant to be cooking and building a second story on that building. I mean, it's got a little bit of a history, as you're probably aware. So I'm saying this to make sure you, in working with our business administrator, don't go too far down any one pigeonhole path. I'd like to make sure that, our options are preserved so we can consider a lot of different alternatives.
Sure, yeah, like I said, we're in very early stages. The grant is for the planning and design, pre-development planning. So there's nothing that's been committed to at this point. It's, the grant money is here to come up with a plan and how to reutilize this asset that the borough has.
Great. Now, it's very exciting, and thank you for the role you played in helping us secure that funding.
Next question.
Yes.
Is this a new EDA grant program to deal with underutilized municipal assets, or has this been around for a while?
I believe it's been around for a couple of years. This is actually the first time I've applied for it and actually kind of heard of it. There's a lot of grant programs out there, but yeah, I think it's relatively new.
Okay, and then so we get this planning grant, and then so if we spend $50,000 and decide it's gonna be $300,000 to make this whatever we want it to be, we get that same money from we apply to EDA, or we go someplace else?
I think that the grant opportunity was just for the planning for the planning, design, getting it ready. I don't know that the EDA has construction grants available through this same program, but that's something that we would explore, as part of utilizing this fund to see where we could find available funding.
Okay, great.
Ben, do you know the top of your head? I do recall going through this with the prior restaurant application. there are very strict CAFRA limitations on if we want to expand the footprint of this building, right? And I want to say you can expand west, but not, definitely not east, and I don't think south either for that matter, but again, you don't have to educate us tonight, but am I correct in understanding there are fairly limited things we can do to expand the footprint?
There are, obviously, this is in a CAFRA zone. And a CAFRA permit would be required. And I did look up that, a public restroom, construction is permitted as you can get a general permit, under the CAFRA rules for a public restroom, in a public park. So I think that would be something that would be permitted, or permittable. So that would be part of utilizing this grant to go for that.
Yeah, right now, for those who don't go to that part of town, we've been used, since COVID, I call it the Airstream. It's the 3-bathroom silver kind of bullet that we put out right next to this building. We've actually built in a sewer line, or we connected the sewer line to it, and we've been using that since COVID, really. It would be.
You can actually see it on that aerial,
Oh, you can, okay.
right underneath the red square.
Yeah,
You can see
so, yeah, there it is, yeah, I see it, yeah. So, we expanded our restrooms, because of COVID, and, it would be nice to, one of the ideas for that, called the Airstream, is, we don't have any, restrooms in Riley Park right now, and if we could seasonally use the Airstream in Riley Park, get it out of there, because that's also kind of lays, creates, it's a little bit takes up some room. It might be helpful for us. So that's something, just a sidebar. Any other?
If there are no other questions, I just have a couple other quick updates for you. This is just for projects that we're working on that the borough can look forward to in the coming year. Lake Terrace Park, that project is under construction. It's probably about 80% done with construction. The contractor is waiting on the final piece of equipment for the playground work that he's doing, and that should be finished up sometime in March. Improvements to Park Place Avenue, that's utilizing municipal aid grant from the DOT. That should start sometime in March as well. That's a project being done by Fernandez Construction, and that work is from Main Street to Fletcher Lake Avenue. Improvements to Fifth Avenue, that's a DOT grant that we got last year. And that is in the design phase. I would anticipate that to be a summer project while school is out.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
And the last one is recreation center improvements. We have 2 grants for that, actually, one from the DCA and then one from Monmouth County. The Monmouth County was a matching grant, the DCA is not a matching grant. The 2 grant amounts total $339,000, and our first step is to do some environmental work,
right,
and then we have to do some the design of the improvements, and we'll work on that this year as well.
Right, and for everybody's information, we're gonna actually go for an additional recreation grant, and that's due on the 27th.
Yes.
Of February, so we're gonna get a pass from DCA, thank you, I wasn't sure which one it was. To submit it on the 28th, because we have a council meeting on the 28th, and we have to get a resolution that approves us submitting that grant, but
yeah, the application will be due on the 27th, but the resolution can be submitted
afterwards, yeah.
Yes.
So we're trying to kind of build a critical mass around this whole recreation thing. We're going to, again, could be some phases too, where we're getting X done, and then right behind that, we do Y, and we really fix up that whole recreation area. So, just so people, that's coming down the pike for 2 weeks from now.
Again, a question, because you're triggering my memory from that last discussion, the day late application and so forth. We at least talked about, and I don't know, I know we're asking for more money than we got. So we might have to cut back unless we get more grant funding. But we at least talked about the possibility of working in trees. I want to say that for my council colleague, Mr. Weber, and Ms. DeNoble for that matter. We also talked, there have been many residents that beat me up all the time about pickleball. We talked about resurfacing courts and maybe having pickleball.
That's
That's in there.
resurfacing.
And I want to just confirm, we also talked about possibly, at least if we have the funding, to at least evaluate a dog park up where the greenhouse is. That was part of the discussion. Might not have been the formal application, but just want to plant that seed that it's still in your mind.
I do remember that, the improvements that we included in the grant application were in excess of the funding amount that we got.
Mhm.
So the dog park was not in the budget. But that can still, be applied for as part of phase 2, and if there's funding, money available, that could be something that could be looked at.
I just want to keep it in everybody's mind that we at least talked about some of those other activities. Thank you. All right. Is that it, Ben?
Yes, that is.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Good update. Got a lot to think about. Okay, we'll move to the next. Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh. Next agenda item is approval of minutes for the 120 January 24th, 2024 council. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of 2024.
Second.
Ms. DeNoble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Ms. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, public comments for pertaining to the 214 agenda. Any public comments? Yes.
The new plan to work means. Going nowhere. On the response rate, that 175, do you know what a breakout of that is, in terms of how many are actual BBBCA members versus those that are not?
You,
Sorry, but
Yeah.
that's my question. You said I have to come up here.
Yeah.
So that's my question.
we can get you that answer. Yeah, we can get you that answer.
Could we just get it tonight if he perhaps has it?
I'm sure he could provide that if he has it, but
The question beyond that, I mean, it would be obviously very interesting to know what that number is. But even with just 175 response, my concern is that you're at best looking at possibly a 4% response rate to a town. That all of a sudden the gears are starting to run, let's go fix Main Street, yada, 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 and nobody really said that that's what we all want. I mean, everybody wants a beautiful Main Street. Everybody thinks it should, look like Mayberry, but that might not fit into everything that we have or everything we need. Similar as we're talking, I just feel like we're continually putting the cart before the horse. And I appreciate Mr. Gubatosi's, heads up of, asking, well, should we be thinking about sewage, or what, or the poles, things of that nature that are, let's get a vision. As well as also the BBCA, I'm sorry, my bad. I do. Who was in charge or who decided on what the questions were? Again, I don't want it to be another situation where we're finding ourselves down the path after a church of, hey, this is a survey about a church. We know what the answer is, so let's get there quick. Okay, so I just think, it's great to want to fix things. It's great to want to have these, but let's have concise vision that includes everybody, or really, as a result of everybody. It's not hard to get everybody to, an easy access to a survey or something of that nature to get the answers we want to have. That's all I'm asking in regards to that.
Thank
But
you.
again, that's also, I'm not done yet.
I didn't say you were.
But then again, that also again brings a little murkiness of the BBBCA. I can, for one, and think I'm pretty well plugged into the town and or try to be. But it's still, so many people don't know who they are, what is really their role here. It seems to be very gray as to, the signs say that, when they publish their events, it's, within the lines to the town, but is it really? I mean, is the town just automatically on board with their things? To me, it's a private entity that's mixing with the government entity, and it's just very, confusing. What I would think is a BBA is almost like would be more of a terms of, okay, you're not here to promote events, but if you really want to support business or you want to build the businesses here, then you should almost be more like a small, better business bureau type thing for them. Come to us like this with grants and saying, hey, here's grants for this type of small business. Or here's how we can get things done for all of you business owners. What can we do to make the business owners want to stay here and could make them more profitable? Not, hey, join my club like Costco, and for that, you're gonna get 10% off at this place, or, you're gonna have a discount here and just have private parks. That's not what we as a small town need.
Well, I would suggest that, the things you mentioned about getting grants and working with the businesses, they are doing that, and they have been doing that. So I would suggest maybe you'd want to set up some time and with Paula and, or editor, a member and get those
Okay.
questions.
I'm good, I appreciate that. Also in terms with and when, if this planning comes to play, like I said, they're talking about pavers, things of that nature. Please, like, maybe what Mr. Gubutos is saying, have a big picture of it. Maybe, as much as pavers are nice, concrete might be the way to go. Because inherently, when you plant trees, they're gonna disturb pavers. Pavers, like they said, just like Ben said, they're tripping hazards. It's already a safety issue. We're lucky we're not getting sued as a town for somebody falling or tripping on something. So things of that nature really need to be looked upon on a greater scale if possible. In terms of the Lake Terrace Park, I can't look at you, Ben, but maybe whisper over my ear. What is the substrate going in? Now, I see that they poured new, concrete collars, but what's going, is it just gonna be filled with mulch again? Which is there before, or
Ask your question again, I'm sorry.
with Lake Terrace,
Yeah, I understood that.
the substrate, what's going in where they poured new concrete collars and what's underneath the existing equipment is mulch? Is it just gonna be mulch again?
I think it is, yeah.
Okay, because, I mean, you look at places again, like we keep looking elsewhere, everywhere else, like, at Belmar, they have a fantastic, beautiful, children's playground that, has the rubber, that give, it's the give, it's, children don't get hurt. Kids get splinters and things of that nature, as we said before, pets use that stuff. Why aren't we looking to do things like that?
We are, that's part of what we looked at. The cost of that rubber would have blown the grant out and we would have been just spending money on the surface.
So perhaps then that we need to, when we do these projects, we could do that and say, hey, this is what we want to do. And we may have to have a phase 2
We,
and plan for
yeah, we did have public hearings and took them through that part, grant. Yeah.
it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Tracy Davidson, 3044. So I don't want to sound like sour grapes or jaded with the brownies, but the BBCA is a nonprofit and there are other nonprofits in town, like the Bradley Beach Education Foundation. And I would just like to know, if I wanted to do a presentation, they get to do a presentation, I just contact Borough Hall and I get to do it.
Contact the borough administrator, yeah.
And we would be able to do all the nonprofits, right? We can
Well,
do presentations.
I would talk to, I don't know the answer to that question, but the borough administrator would know that, yeah. I'm sure you can, but I don't want to say,
Well,
yeah.
They just did. so
Yeah, they just did, yeah,
that's-
yeah.
They've done it before,
Yeah,
not.
I'm sure that that conversation would yield that, yes.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Your voice is pretty deep, Jack. You can probably do it in second. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, you can.
couple of quick things. Is this survey less than 10% of the population? How many people were actually surveyed?
4%.
170.
Well, the result was,
75 people.
4%?
Yeah.
no, those are those who responded.
Yeah.
4% responded.
It went out on different mediums. It was,
How many went out?
I can't answer that question, but it went to, there was links all over the place for
It
it.
seems a little on the meager side to me.
I'm sorry?
It's, to me, it's meager. It doesn't represent the population. Not enough people responded to this deal. Number one. Number two. No mention has been made to reducing the speed limit, especially the first beach block. You're getting 25 miles an hour all the way down to Ocean Avenue, which is another 25 miles an hour street. that last, first, I happen to live there, so I can observe. That should be reduced to 15 miles an hour. That last, because somebody's gonna get clobbered there. Somebody's gonna get clobbered there badly. The third thing is we have a huge berm which covers the entire beachfront. Just about.
Yep.
Why can't we make a few more areas of vistas within that berm?
Areas of
So
what,
you store.
areas of what, I didn't hear what you said, areas.
Make an opening within the berm, so more people can get a view of the seaside, of the ocean, whatever. Now, you could stockpile the sand. You could stockpile the sand and then move it into position, into the upcoming storm, and we have, you know, with a tremendous forecasting abilities nowadays. So, anyway, those are the three thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
It's our berm in a while. Yes.
Hi, Dr. Tom McGuire, 610 Brindley Avenue. I did miss the first thing that I think it's how about the full here discussion. My wife told me it's great. But I was just wondering why, because I was having deja vu back there, but I was confirmed that the presentation that Ben just did was a year and a half ago, and there was nothing different. Almost your comments were almost the same too, with nothing different. Why weren't those workshop items that and the BBCA recommendation presentation where we could talk about that more instead of this back and forth? Because there's obviously a lot of questions about that and about the project presentation, because that was the exact same presentation and nothing has changed. And there was no presentation on what we were doing. It would have been nice to be like, oh, this is what we propose to do, not this is the Rutgers study, all verbatim and waste our time, which I felt it was. Sorry.
Well, I wouldn't consider it a waste of time. I think that we're
Doing the same exact thing we did a year and a half ago.
look,
No, I don't want to let you finish. So it was a year and a half ago, exactly, practically, and we got nothing new from this. So
Yeah.
why wasn't the presentation done where it was like, okay, these are options, let's talk about this and have it as a workshop?
because what we're doing is we've set some 24 objectives, and one of them is to really get serious about Main Street. We've been talking about Main Street for a couple of years.
Agreed, yeah.
So we don't have to I don't think we have to recreate the wheel. I think we have to say, are these viable plans? How do we phase them? How do we fund them?
Why don't we
So-
have that
so-
presentation today?
So we had a survey done that affirmed that cost us nothing, that size of the sample size was smaller, but it's still
I'm talking about
it's still,
BBCA.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to answer your
That's fine.
question.
We're paying for Ben, I don't care. We're paying for Ben. My
Okay,
time is
okay,
5 minutes.
we're
Paying for Ben, I don't pay for them, so we pay for Ben, so his presentations, do it over again. Is a waste of
Okay,
time.
thank you.
It's waste of our resources.
thank you.
My time's not done. So I just want to make sure that next time he does come here, can you please come with a presentation to let us all know, what are we gonna do? Where are we gonna move forward? Because if it's a year and a half, when we said we want a 1 to 3 year plan, that's already a year and a half. So when, we're not getting anywhere.
It's a great
So-
question. And
That is a
and
great
hopefully we'll,
question. Thank you.
and
So-
hopefully we will get the next steps, and we will have opportunities for people to bring those things up.
I get that, but it's, again, it was a year and a half.
Okay, you made
Come
your
with
point.
the
Thank you.
A year and a half to make this presentation, so I'm sure he could have come up with something. He's a very smart guy. He has great ideas. I don't understand why it wasn't coordinated with him, so we can have a workshop, so we can move it further. Because now his next presentation is what? Another 6 months to another year, and then we're finally gonna move forward. It's just low.
Thank you.
And I would. Listen, I do get to interrupt you. You don't get to interrupt me. This is public comment, not mayor interrupting.
It's questions about the agenda
Is that what?
and comments about the agenda.
Hey.
Yep.
So let me comment.
Sure.
Thank you, okay. Just keep the wind out of things. So the other thing was about the survey. I would have loved to have questions about that. And I did miss the majority of it because I was driving here, but I obviously it was a small sample. I'm a BBCA member and I don't remember getting it. And obviously there's just BBCA members that did respond to the survey. Like, we know if it was more to them than, you know, everyone else out there, so it could be slightly skewed because it's. If they have meetings and there's 100 people there, and out of the 180 of them, they all talked about it, but I don't know all that information, it could be slightly skewed, but. The information's good, I mean, I want the town to be better, I want the Main Street to be better, I just wish it was more organic. I just don't feel the need like someone to tell us what to do. I mean, I don't think anyone told Cookman Avenue, Asbury Park, what to do. It just happened. You know, like businesses started showing good businesses, then another good business shows up, and then another good business shows up, and then they started doing streetscapes. So I just feel that if we make it more inviting to business owners and like someone said, the grants, that would have been great. He said, this is the grants. I looked at the grants for my facade. So I know there's grants out there. That would have been a great addition if they could, but I know you coordinate things with them, if they could have told us and it's presented, this is what we can do, not this is what we want you to do. You know, like how the town should do something, but how they can offer, these are the grants that are available. Because I know they're out there and I wish we would have just done that. So I just hope this next time that we have, I appreciate the volunteer discussion. My wife said it was great, but if we can please have workshops, I thought this was what we were gonna do for this. We were gonna have it every other meeting with workshops and presentations. This is just not ideal.
Thank you. Yes.
Thomas J. Cohen, 612 Third Avenue. I want to thank Mr. Mulligan and Mr. Matlock for this presentation. And because of that, I am going to repeat things that I've said in this room over the last 6 years, okay? Because they do apply to this agenda item. First of all, I asked about striping on Main Street for delineated parking. And I was told, oh, it's in progress. We got to check with the state. Well, that was a couple of years ago. Nothing happened. We recently had an auto fatality at Park Place Avenue and Main Street. I've always questioned the sight triangles. Could we get the sight triangles fixed at the same time? Now that we have a fatality. Mayor, you referenced low-hanging fruit. This is all low-hanging fruit. And there's no reason that these things couldn't have been done in the last year and a half. We're in the process of choosing a bench, which will be cleared through the BBBCA and the council. I've already been in here for that. We're gonna have a naming opportunity for those benches so that we can get this done with no taxpayer expense. I'm gonna say it again. I was here in 1997. We approved the paver project. My building, 401 Main, was charged $15,000 for the pavers. Happy to pay it. Came out great. Well, that's a 40-year improvement. Mr. Matlock can, correct me if I'm wrong. I expect to change these pavers in 2037. And at that point in time, I'll be happy to write another check to do it. Spring Lake's pavers were done approximately the same time. Their pavers are fine. Okay. Del Ponte's did an amazing job resetting there. I've had stonemen at my property 3 different times to repair mine. If the code office asks me to repair them, I will. The code office needs to walk down the street, take a little yellow spray can and say, hey, send a notice, here you go. You have these yellow marks here, you have 30 days to repair them. It'll get done. There's no reason for us to pay again for this. The streetlights are our problem because we didn't replace the broken streetlights with matching streetlights. Okay, so the original streetlights are very attractive. I think that's the first grant you go after. That's there's been a major technology change in the last 24 years on this. So there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to do that. Let's pick something really nice. Let's pick nice downlighting that's attractive to anybody. We had to fight New Jersey DOT for the bike sharrows. They need to be maintained. That operation does work. We had to fight for the hatched crosswalks on 3rd and 2nd Avenue. They operate. Every non-signalized intersection on Main Street should be a hatched crosswalk. And there's no signs. You're supposed, anytime you have a hatched crosswalk, there's supposed to be a sign there. People don't know. Somebody turns to make a left. The guy from North Jersey behind him is in a hurry to get to the beach. He goes to pass on the right and hits the pedestrian. A very nice lady died in Bricktown, crossing guard at Curtis Point, with that very thing. So we need the corresponding signs. There's a crosswalk. So those are just a few of the things. I'd like to see the walk signs coordinated. Right now, if you get to the crosswalk and you don't hit the button, and some of the buttons don't work, then it doesn't tell you to walk. So now you walk, and then the car turning says, hey, wait a minute, you don't have a walk. Well, I have the lights, I should be able to walk. It should be like Manhattan, just let it turn on automatically. So these are just a couple of the low hanging fruit that I think we can really take care of with very, very little money. It's maintenance, and it's deferred maintenance that we haven't done. So now we're gonna spend $3-4 million a block. There's no reason for it. Also, in the Rutgers study, the corner extensions and those things. There was a big question of whether New Jersey DOT would approve that on a state highway. So that has to be established before we even waste any time going, oh, wow, we wish we could have that. No, you may not be able to have it. Let's sit down with New Jersey DOT. Also, there's a safe way. I mean, I park in front of Uber to go to the seniors luncheon function. I have a couple people in the car. We open the door, there's a bench there. They can't get out of the car. I gotta back the car up. Doesn't function, right? No. So anyway, the benches need to be in the right place. We have a great naming opportunity. There's no more naming opportunity at the beach for benches, so we can get this done. And there's no reason for us to spend tens of millions of dollars when we just had a 13% tax increase. So I'm happy to volunteer. Anybody wants any help? Only been a landlord here on Main Street for 27 years. But we're happy to help, and it can all be done very simply. And code office needs to step it up. The other thing I want to say about the garbage or the clutter, I bought Otto garbage cans 8 years ago. 12, they're all intact, they operate perfectly, and I want to say, I've said this in this room. Every commercial operation on Main Street should have an identical garbage can. When I walk Main Street on a Sunday night in the summer, it's repulsive. Because everyone's got different garbage cans, different stacks of piles, no tops on the cans. It's a mess. On a Sunday, just have uniformity. That's the uniformity that we really need. And I want to thank everyone for this meeting tonight. It's very helpful. And I hope we got it out there to really get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name is Henry Machos, 209 Third Avenue. And I guess I'm a little concerned about commercial property owners worrying about or demanding increases in their property when their property taxes went down last year. A lot of the properties went down $300.
You really need to address your questions up here.
Okay,
Yeah.
$300 on a minimum. If I look at some of these, like Darcy's was down $300 or $400, mine were up $1,500. And I think maybe you might have read a letter I might have written. Or did you just throw it in the garbage?
I don't throw any letters.
Did you read it? Because you didn't respond to it.
Maybe you should resend it because I do respond to everything I get, so maybe it's lost.
I did get a couple.
Okay.
But my taxes went up about $1,500, and if you go across the board on Main Street, they went down $300, $500, $1,500. And it's been that way for a year and couple of years, and I noticed it. This year was extremely bad. And I called the tax assessor, and he told me how it works. And I told him I don't think it's correct. 2 weeks later, he called me back. And he told me that they're changing it next year. And it's not going to be based on what the fictitious rent could be on the property. It's going to be based on the land value and then the assessment of the rent. So let's figure out what that is. Do you have a new view of what the tax assessment is on the town? Commercial or residential? Because that's the first thing I would have done. I would have said, give me a projection or give me a view.
Yeah.
Because again, my taxes went up $1,500, okay? And across the board on Main Street, it was down $300 to over $1,000 for a property. Okay, and then they're coming up here demanding streetlights and garbage cans. Maybe you should pay, they gotta pay their fair share. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand. your
Okay,
question.
and maybe you go back in your mail. Al, thank you for responding. And John. go back into your mail and review it.
You saying it's an email?
It was an email.
Okay, I will take a
And
look.
it's very worth reading,
Well, if you have it, resend it, just in case I
Okay.
can't find it. Okay, thank you.
okay?
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Beth Kepler, 504 Central Avenue, Happy Beach. I'd like to address resolution 2448. It's my opinion that Councilman Gubitosi's ongoing efforts to stop our taxpayer dollars from being embezzled by the expansive criminal network embedded in our borough is the reason that he is being so viciously and unjustly accused and attacked. Deception, chaos, and confusion lies at the root of the motives behind this pending complaint. This mayor and his administration is intentionally creating division so as to direct attention away from their own criminality. They wouldn't be doing this if if Councilman Gubitosi's skill, professional knowledge, and expertise were not such a threat to their criminal agenda. In the words of someone you may be familiar with, Mayor Saul Alinsky, in his words, accuse your opponent of what you are doing to create confusion and to inculcate voters against evidence of your own guilt. Pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Cut off the support network and isolate the target from sympathy. Go after people and not institutions. People hurt faster. This is very effective. Direct personalized criticism and ridicule works. Moral principles are disposable fictions. The end justifies the means. For these reasons, I support and ask this council to vote yes on this referendum to pay Councilman Gubitosi's legal fees, as stated in the resolution. And I personally want to thank you, Councilman, for standing in the gap, for not backing down. And I want to extend, I can't even imagine what your family, your wife must be feeling. Not ever having had a face-to-face conversation with you. I can't even fathom you being guilty of the things that you are being accused of in this complaint. And I hope that you, more than just for us, but for your family, defend this vigorously. And we, the people of Bradley Beach, stand behind you and we support you. And it was, well, I'm not going to say that. But the other thing that I would like to say, it's very interesting that this big, long, very professionally and well-produced slideshow and presentation that we just went through with the BBCA was based on 175 residents. And it's a multi-million-dollar decision, at least $1 million decision. But yet you, Mayor, characterized publicly in a newspaper and marginalized 250 residents of this town who signed a petition and characterized it as bogus. And it's not bogus, because I wrote the letter, I read it on the record, and I sent it return receipt requested certified mail to the Attorney General's office and to Judge English. And I've still not received an answer, and I have the certified receipt that it was received. So it's not bogus, Mayor. And it's interesting how, excuse me,
No,
excuse me.
no, excuse me.
It's
I'm sorry. Could
interesting
you?
how 250 residents
Okay,
were able to be marginalized and described as bogus, while another 175 are being given weight. And we're putting and discussing putting $1 million into a project. When we are in the position right now where we haven't even seen the audit from 2022, that's my tax dollars that you're spending.
you've kind of veered off.
No, I'm
Jen.
addressing, no, I have not veered.
No,
No, I'm addressing the BDCA and 175 people who we
No,
just
I-
listened to an outline extensively for an hour for the second time the same information, but 250 people who signed a letter stating how we need an investigation 6 months ago, back in July, and it's only compounded. The argument has only gotten stronger with time because you continuously and your administration continuously to perpetuate
Thank you.
criminality.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess for the minutes, I don't know if I've ever used the word bogus in any comments or,
It's in the newspaper. I'll forward it to you.
yeah, okay, any other questions? Okay, if there's no other questions, we will go
We have a
to,
couple people on
Oh,
the.
yeah,
Zoom.
I'm
oh, I'm
sorry.
sorry.
We have a couple on Zoom, Mayor.
Sorry.
Don's iPhone. Don, are you there?
Yes, I am. There we go. Hi, Don Greenberg, 302 Park Place Ave. One just housekeeping item. If you're going to do PowerPoint presentations, it would be nice if they would be shared on the Zoom. That technology is capable on Zoom because all I'm looking at is like a window, you know, that shows me the TV screen on the wall. I really can't see the PowerPoint. So if you could share them going forward on the PowerPoint presentation, because, you know, I see pictures of Al and the mayor and everybody else, but I don't actually see the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, I could be wrong about this, Mr. Greenberg, but I think the way that they took over the presentations and ran them out of there might have taken it out of Zoom. So you raise a good point, because I think prior to this, it was run by Michelle. You could see it because it was on Zoom. So it's good.
Yeah, we have in the past. You're right. We have been able to see it in the
Yes,
past.
I think,
but
so it's good input because I didn't even think about that. So we'll make that adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And in terms of the presentations, I love the idea of bike lanes in some fashion or another. Especially in the summer, there's a lot of people cycling. And I do agree that the sight lines are terrible. If anybody's ever tried to make a left from Park Place onto Main Street, you take your life in your hands. So I think that's something that needs to be worked on sooner rather than later. And in terms of enforcing bike rules, like people riding on the sidewalk, and my own pet peeve, which I brought up before, is if we can get the local PD to enforce the ban against riding the wrong way against traffic. I remember the last time I brought this up a couple years ago, the chief said, well, nobody's been killed yet. So, but I don't think that's the bar we should use. I think we should be proactive in enforcing the riding with traffic on your bicycle. And if, you know, maybe we could have a bike rodeo. I don't know if we've ever had one, but, you know, a little safety education. I'd be happy to volunteer to help out.
We have done that, but I think they're planning on one this summer again.
Yeah, and if you need any help, I'll be happy to help with that.
Thank you.
All right, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Eileen Shishias?
Can you hear me?
Eileen?
Yes,
Hi.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Eileen Shishias, 112 Fourth Avenue. I found this a very interesting meeting regarding Main Street. My question is whether or not the borough has any intention of holding the building owners to bring their buildings up to code.
We do that on an ongoing basis.
Well, there have been so many buildings that have been in violation, and I can think of several since 2017, and nothing has been done. And I just think that some of these are, they're very apparent, and I think that the residents deserve a better support from code enforcement to make sure the landlords, the building owners are doing their part to make our town better. Another thing is, now I apologize because I don't have the technical name that you used, but I'm going to describe them as porta potties. I feel as though the residents of Bradley Beach deserve something better than porta potties. I know they're on Ocean Avenue. You're talking of having this whole meeting about beautification of Main Street. And if you're going to transfer those up to Riley Park, that is going to be an eyesore and a step backwards. That's my opinion, and I thank you for having
Okay.
my time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Send it. I can't-
No, there's one more. I phone for Linda.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Linda Duffy, 312 Brindley Avenue. I'd like to thank Al Gubernatosi for bringing up creating a master plan, because we need to look forward and do things in succession that will benefit the town. So I'd like to say that I have been watching the renovation of the Lake Terrace Park. And because it basically is a toddler park, it has never been gated. I was wondering if there's going to be any gates installed so parents don't have to pull their hair out running after toddlers here and there. There has never been a gate there. It needs to be a gated park like it is on Ocean Avenue. Does anybody have any feelings about that?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, Ben, you can cover it. Ben's here. I'm pretty sure it's.
Yeah, they're gonna be some gates installed as part.
Right, yes.
On both sides, between the grassy area and the street that runs alongside it?
The two corners, the one at the corner of Lake Terrace and forget that other side street, and the opposite corner, where it's just the opening in the fence, 2 gates are installed there.
I thank you for your foresight in doing that. Also, I'd like to talk about Don Greenberg's response to the riding the wrong way down the one-way streets. Bicyclists habitually run the wrong way, ride their bikes the wrong way on streets. This needs to be addressed, and the police department needs to start giving out warnings. So maybe people will get the hint that you shouldn't be doing that before something else happens. And we don't need to hold the bar so high as no one's gotten killed yet. So I think that's proactive. Also, the sight triangles on most of our streets are not within the state's code, which I think the town can adjust it to whatever they want, but maybe we should revisit that. And I appreciate your time and thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the next agenda item, which is ordinances. There are none. So that was quick. Number 11, communications.
Pardon me, Mayor, you had a communication about a grant award. Did you want me to do that?
That's the next thing on the.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you missed it. My bad.
Number 11.
Okay, here we go.
communications. I'm gonna actually be extremely brief on this because Mr. Matlack covered it. All I want to just reiterate, and I think Paul left, was as it relates to the, I will cover this in a little bit of a different angle. I said earlier when I started tonight about Biazi, and we have made some really good improvements in the Biazi building, and you know, for a marginal cost, and we've created a lot more space than we had there before. However, we still want to, we still have conflicting or competing entities there. Seniors, Meals on Wheels, community development, the Historical Society. And I think, you know, I've had a few conversations with the Historical Society. I met with them again on Monday, just give them a grant status, but I had met with that group in October, and again, I think it was Monday. We did pass a resolution in November to move forward with the grant. We got the grant, which is great. Now I think we're trying to figure out, and we're going to do it with the Historical Society, you know, is there a 1-2 punch? One of the things that people aren't aware of in the Biazi Center, a lot of people aren't aware that we just expanded and created a storage room on the north side of Biazi that's about 630 square feet. That could be expanded even more with a couple of little tweaks. It's been painted, put a floor down, and it looks like it's a ready office space. And we're contemplating, could we have a part of the Historical Society kind of headquartered there for archiving and kind of an office thing, and then the promenade becomes that exhibit hall, museum, and some combination or iteration. So my point on this grant and really the work we're doing on Biazi is we're trying to deal with conflicting or competing assets and trying to fit all the activities in town in all these places in a comfortable way. Those who have been in Biazi and looked at the historical stuff, and Paul, if he were here, agree with me. You know, we've got cabinets and glass cases that maybe aren't the most effective and efficient. Are there ways we can do things differently? So we're going to be looking at that in the coming weeks and months, in parallel to looking at, you know, this study and also for the long term, what's the best fit out. So that's probably more important to cover because the grant, Ben covered it very well, and I was going to cover it, but when he covered it up front, that was fine. So we're all aware of the grant, and we'll be working on that. Then we'll keep reporting back to everybody on how that goes. So that's the point on that communication. Resolutions, we have a few resolutions. Most times in this meeting, this is the first meeting of the month, we won't have resolutions. There are a few this month that we this meeting that we had to do. The first resolution is 2024-46. Thank you, guys. Authorizing and providing the issuance of sale of 11,580,500 as bond anticipation notes for the Borough of Bradley Beach in the County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey, to the Monmouth County Improvement Authority and determining various matters in connection wherein. I will make a motion to,
Mr. Mayor, discussion.
yeah,
I'm confused. You did send us a schedule. I had asked for supporting that number, but you had a different number, 9,780,000. I'm not sure I understood the data that was on.
yeah, so the 11,580 would be I call, when we went out and looked at the bond anticipation notes. We've been able to refine that down. This would be the high end if we went out and felt as though we needed it, but I think we're going to end up with a lesser number that we have to actually go out and get the notes. I think it's in March. So it's been really refinement between Megan Bennett, the bond attorney, our CFO, and Meredith, the acting borough administrator.
I'm sorry, though. No, I'm really not trying to be difficult. The original question was why this specific amount, 11,580,000?
That was the start point, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they've been able to take that down to a lesser number. It won't exceed this number of 11,580, and I can be clear about that.
But the new number that you provided to us just a day or so ago was 9,780,000.
9.8. Yeah.
So almost $2 million less. So I guess the obvious question is, should we? And I did have a question about even that detail. There were a number of adjustments down. Is that because I assume it's because we're sharing some of that bonding with Avon?
No, that's not. We're just
Almost like 3.5 million, but we were dropping 1.5 million.
Yeah.
What's happening there, for example?
I think it's a timing issue that we're not going to need as much initially for 2024. We would go into 2025.
And these smaller ones appear similar issue timing.
Yeah, it's just timing. So the recommendation, and I checked this today with the CFO, the recommendation was that this was the high end. We believe we can commit at this 9.780 number, but the recommendation was to stay with the resolution as is, and shoot for this lower number of about, let's call it $10 million, $9.8 million.
Can you help us or help me understand the process? If we were to approve a number almost $2 million higher, how do we make sure we don't actually bond for that? Like, how does that process work? Do we ask for bids up to 11 million, but then we only take what we need?
I think what the bond counsel and the CFO will do is as they're procuring those, they report back to us. If you want us to report back on what the final number is, that's not a problem at all, because he's got a pretty good handle on it with the bond attorney and with the borough administrator.
Well, no, it's not reporting back on, what the final number is. It's understanding the final number before we approve it. I'm just looking at the resolution language itself, which. I want to get to the therefore. The chief financial officer is hereby authorized to cause all or a portion of its bond anticipation notes to be issued and sold. I'm reading this not only for my benefit, but for anyone in the public who might be interested. The borough hereby authorizes the use of certain information concerning, okay. A portion of the proceeds of the sale of program notes to the MCIA may be retained by the MCIA as payment for the borough's allocable share of issuance expenses and expenses related to the county guarantee.
Yeah, we're going through the Monmouth County group, and that got us a favorable rate.
What is the rate?
I don't have the rate in front of me. And unfortunately, the Meredith and the CFO and Megan worked through this. So I don't know what the final rate came in at.
Mr. Mayor, what's the urgency of this? Like, can we table this until the next meeting to get a better understanding?
I think there's some urgency that they want to get this in with the county. I mean, we can clarify these questions. Meredith will be in tomorrow and can clarify those questions. I mean, we can condition, I mean, if you want to meet with her or her and Ricky together, that would be fine. Unfortunately, I thought Meredith would be here to represent this today, but her flight's got a little screwy.
I guess section 1 gives the flexibility I'm looking for, but in terms of what we would approve, it's saying the chief financial officer is hereby authorized to cause all or a portion of its bond anticipation notes to be issued. I appreciate that flexibility. What I'm concerned about is controlling that flexibility, that if the most recent estimate you have is 9.8 million and we're authorizing 11.6, that extra 1.8 million just concerns me because I don't know what back end control the council would have over the additional borrowing of that funding.
I would suggest that what they're working through is trying to get to the lower rate, lower number. This was what the start point was. If you're looking for the delta of those two, the 11.8 versus the 9.8 versus the 11.6, a flag that says if we go over that, the number, that 9.8, I don't think that's a problem at all, but I think that can be very proactively communicated, but the intent is not to hopefully not have any issues where we have to go up.
Well, we certainly, I mean, I'll speak again for myself. I certainly don't want to impede the borough in terms of borrowing money that we need. But I can't see granting kind of blind authorization of 1.8 million that we don't have any explanation for, why that number might be needed. So can we alter this to, at least I would ask, can we alter this to approve the 9.8 million? And then if another 1.8 million is needed at a later date, Mr. Mayor, can we come back and expand this at that time?
All I can tell you is that the recommendation by the CFO today was leave the resolution as is, and we're going to try to manage this. If we go with a lower number, the 9.8, I don't know if that's creating some kind of constraint for the bond attorney and the CFO. Again, I think they can explain that. It's unfortunate that we just have an absence tonight that would be able to explain that because Meredith worked at a detail level with these guys.
Mr. Mayor, isn't it right to say that there's no new borrowing in this? This is all like restructuring, kind of refinancing of existing debt.
No, there
is new borrowing.
Yes, there is.
And it's detailed for us, John, that number we've been talking about, 9.8. It's what this is allocating for.
So can we just change the number at the top of this to 9.8 million?
I just said, he recommended we did.
I don't think you can do that because I think it's run through the MCIA for pre-approval. I don't think you can just change the number because the MCIA, like if it's here, that means the MCIA said, okay.
So it may tie into the MCIA that they,
They're the.
we started working with them in the fourth quarter.
Mr. Cannon, if we authorize borrowing of this money, that says all or some, right? It's not, the wording is not.
It's an authorization.
It's an authorization. But how do we, the council, stop an extra $2 million of borrowing that we've authorized if we don't, right now, we don't know what that extra 1.8 million might be. And you're asking, not you, but we're being asked to authorize this borrowing, not knowing what the money might be for. I mean, how does that work in reality? Do we have any?
Well, I mean, it's an authorization, so when it comes up to be spent, there's a certification of funds that says it's available in a line item where this authorization goes. And then they borrow the money. So technical answer to your question, I'm not sure it's a very practical one, is that you have to review the spending every time it's done. So you just don't spend the money when it comes up.
Why is there extra money? Is it for emergencies or what?
I'm just telling you that.
We started this in the fourth quarter.
CFO question.
What's happened since the fourth quarter? First, you went out and Megan Bennett got us a favorable rate with the Monmouth County group. What's happened since then is they've been working to try to refine what we'd actually go out and spend. So to the attorney's point, it very well could be a pre-authorization amount that's what we've committed to, but that doesn't mean that's what we have to necessarily borrow or incur debt on. And I think that's probably why the CFO said, we really need to stick to that number, but we have a high probability of bill coming in at the $9.8 million. So I think this is not a high risk approval.
Oh, no, it's good. The underlying documents for this that the CFO obviously has, because no one's got, he or she, I believe at this point, right? He's the one who got the approval through the MCIA. So I mean, it's in there. The reason I say I'll be change it is because this is a pool, it's pooled, right? MCIA is a pooled. It's a pooled funding. It's a funding pool, I guess is the way to put it. So they have it all allocated, they go out for a certain amount and they approve all that. So I'm not sure you can just change it and send it into them, and that's going to be okay.
Mr. Cannon, let me ask you in simple resident terms. Is this someone like I would call it a HELOC, where you're authorizing your ability to borrow up to this amount, but you said we can control it by managing the spend associated with this. If I don't need that money, that I get approval for my HELOC from the bank, home equity loan. I'm getting approved by the bank. In this case, we're doing the approving, but I get approved by the bank for $500,000 on my home equity. I only spent $380,000, or am I getting the loan for the full $500,000? You know what?
Like, if you mean,
Are we paying
Yeah.
interest, are we paying interest
Yes.
on 11 million?
you shouldn't be until you spend it.
Until you spend it. So if you don't spend it, you're not paying interest on it.
You should not be, no.
Bond council's fees though are based on the dollar amount of the borrowing.
Yeah, but
Typically,
the
I feel
bond,
like they're based on the notes, though, and I'm not entirely sure of the mechanisms in that regard. I mean, if these are really, on God's honest truth, these are really CFO questions, or the administrator who did all the work with the CFO. Like,
And
those
if-
kind
and
of
if we-
details just aren't gonna be.
and if we don't approve this, then we jeopardize our ability to borrow, period.
Yep.
I'm feeling a little blackmailed into voting for this.
Well, I think, again, the CFO and the borough administrator have that level of detail. They have worked, the bond council does not dictate anything. We provide her what we want. And you can see the detail that we provided to y'all on Monday was general capital, sewer capital, and beach capital.
No, that was very helpful. I appreciated that, but it totaled 9.8 million.
Right, and I guess the subsequent question, had that question come up with the difference, we could answer, I could have had the CFO contact you on that. He was clear with me, though, that we needed, because I asked the question, do we need to go with the lower number? And he said, no, you need to go with the 11.5, but we've been able to take this down to 9.8. So I think it does have to do with pre-authorization from the Monmouth County group, that's who we worked with because they gave us the most favorable rate.
Okay, so I actually thought when we showed up tonight, after you shared that detail, I thought we were going to change this dollar amount, which I now am told we can. So, Mr. Mayor, when you said, had we asked, I thought you gave us the detail, we were changing it. I guess my question now is, can you just commit to the council that the CFO and the VA will explain this very thoroughly to us within a week?
Absolutely. That's probably within a day.
It would have been helpful to just have had the explanation before being asked to vote on it.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments, questions?
So motion to approve 2024-46. So I have a second.
Second,
Mr. Noble?
When I borrow money, the first thing I ask is what's the rate? And I'm not getting the answer and I just don't feel comfortable with this. I just can't say yes, so I'm gonna say no.
Mr. Gubatose?
it's not fair that Ms. Council President DeNoble gets to go first and say no, so the rest of us are in that much tighter a bind here. I totally agree with you, Council President. I'd like to know the rate. I'd like to know why the extra 1.8 million. Only because I appreciate the need to borrow at least 9.8 million. And I'm being told very clearly that I jeopardize all of the borrowing if I vote no with you. I'm going to vote yes.
Ms. Mahoney?
I'm going to assume that that it's built in and it's pooled, and I'm also going to assume that the rate is based on the higher number. And I'm hoping that my assumptions are correct. I also feel like we probably have to do this, so I'm going to vote yes and expect an answer. I assume that Ricky can give me, Mr. Garz can give me an answer tomorrow.
Yep.
So I'm gonna expect that, and I also think that it'll be easy to track this $2 million. So I'm gonna vote yes.
Mr. Weber?
I'm also gonna vote yes, because I am confident that we're gonna hear from the borough officials as we have been promised and get the information we need, so I vote yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2024-47, requesting permission for the declaration by Ryder Fallen Heroes Trust Fund to accept bequests, legacies, and gifts pursuant to NJSA 40A ;5-29 in order to honor the deceased veterans of the borough of Bradley Beach. Make a motion to.
Question?
Yes.
This just means that we're just creating a trust fund.
Yeah, just
In
a
addition to
dedication.
the many trust funds I have.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And then, John, that also helps us segregate the dollars from
Yeah,
taxpayers.
and I'll second that.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes,
Ms. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm up. 2024-48, authorizing retention of Hosea Cohen LLC, defend Councilman Al Gubatose in matter of Humphrey versus Bradley Beach. Docket number MONL 25824.
Second.
No, I didn't motion.
Mr. Noble?
Oh,
You motion it, you second.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2024-48, authorizing the retention of Flosia Cohen LLC to defend Councilman Alan Gubatose in the matter of Humphrey versus Bradley Beach. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
abstain.
Ms. Mahoney?
yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Abstain. 2024-49, authorizing retention of Michael Collins Esquire of King. Oh,
Yes.
thank you, Collins, represent Borough Council in the matter of Fox versus DeMarco, docket number MONL 9159523.
A quick comment, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Just for the residents' knowledge, this is basically appointing an attorney to defend the borough in the mayor's lawsuit, who would be replacing Mr. Cannon, who has recused himself from that litigation. So just want to make sure everyone understands what we're voting on. I'll make that motion to, let me read this.
Just, you could just say 2024-49.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve 2024-49.
Second.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes,
Ms. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, abstaining also, I'm sorry. Okay, there's no announcements, public comments, public comments. Any public comments? Yes.
The green light 414 on Avenue. I have three questions. The first two are for Mr. Cannon. And then the third one is for Mayor Fox. And I'd like to actually just read the questions before anyone answers. My first question, Ms. DeMarco indicated that the employment services of Mr. Fahrenbach for work in August and September of 2023 was paid in January of 2024. When questioned, she explained that Mr. Fahrenbach had requested that he be paid in the 2024 calendar year. From a budget perspective, this is problematic. The $26,000 consultancy fee for BA services places a burden on this current year and may well be a cause of confusion in projecting future budgets and look back. Is it legal for the municipality to manipulate the timeline of payment for employment services for the sake of tax year implications? The second question, given that the former BA Kim Humphrey has filed a lawsuit against the borough, is it in the interest of Bradley Beach to continue to maintain her services of purchasing agent as a holdover? Is the borough required to have a QPA? And my third question, which is for Mayor Fox, what is the status of 319 Lorraine? Please provide an update on the RFP referenced 1 month ago. So if I can ask Mr. Cannon those questions first.
Sure. So in response to your first question, I know you're talking about budgets. I don't know which way it is sitting here. But for example, those funds were encumbered in 2023. They may very well, they paid the first month of 2024. They very well may be part of the 2023 budget, because you can do that. You can take those 23 budget funds and spend them in 24, but allocate them appropriately. That was your first concern as to the budget. Second concern as to the timing of the payment, the municipality is permitted. So we can always pay people later, but we cannot prepay people for things that they didn't do yet, right? Because you have to sign a claimant certification that you perform the services of goods or provided the goods. So that is acceptable. I can give you other examples. There are when highly paid employees retire with significant sick pay payouts, the town often enters into agreements with those type of employees to pay over time. It helps the employee from a tax perspective. It helps the borough from or the municipality from a budgeting perspective. So that both those things are permissible. And I'm not sure that your assumption, because it's paid in 24, it's not part of the 23 budget, although I don't know what it is sitting here right now. They can be encumbered and then paid within the next month for budget purposes. So neither of those things is.
So there's no concern or liability that the payments for employment services are actually manipulated in order for, and it was at the request of the individual, not to be encumbered by that salary in that calendar year. It's okay for a municipal entity to actually make those changes.
Yes, we can't do is pay them earlier to help them out. We always pay people later if it benefits both parties.
Ms. Greenblatt, just to follow up on what you just said, I think what is likely, we don't know though that this happened, but it's likely it was encumbered in 2023, but it wasn't paid until 24. If it's encumbered in 23, if its accounting is done correctly, then the expense, if you will be recognized in 23. And it's more like we set up a liability, the encumbrance, and then when we paid in 24, you just basically credit cash and debit that liability. So the expense would, if it was encumbered in 23, the expense would hit 23.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question was with regard to the lawsuit by Kim Humphrey against the borough and the fact that she is still being paid by Bradley Beach as a QPA in a holdover this year.
Yeah, so that's a difficult question in a labor case. I'll just say this, it can cut both ways, right? But I really don't want to give a legal opinion on that pending.
Yeah, I would say we have no comment on that right now.
I mean, but is it in our, okay, so here's the other question. The other question is, is the borough required to have a QPA? Is that a requirement?
It's not a legal requirement.
It's not a legal requirement, but it saves us money.
Well, it's not, it's saving us money when we're paying for the services with the same individual who's suing the borough. I'm not quite sure about that. I think that's a matter of interpretation. So my next question is about the status of 319 Lorraine. I'd like to know what the developments have occurred.
We are in the process of developing those RFPs.
That's not really an answer. You know, it's not an answer. Well, can you provide some information to the community about what exactly is in the RFP?
We're
What are
working
the
with
plans? What
land
is the
use.
vision?
We have the RFPs they'll be public, and we're working with the land use board to get those completed.
So there's no interest in involving the community and knowing how this property is going forward and the timeline?
Yeah.
I mean, I had asked the question a month ago. and I
3 weeks
know-
ago, yes.
No, it was a month ago, when I was here standing.
24th, yeah, 24th is 3 weeks ago, yeah.
No, it
No, we're
wasn't the
working on it.
24th.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
Okay, I mean, can we look forward to some sort of a presentation about what is the timeline, what's going forward with this property? It's been sitting and sitting and sitting.
I'm aware it's been sitting, and I've been pushing it more than anybody else. I've been pushing it more than anybody else, so I can tell you when we have that, we'll have that for you.
Okay, I'd like some sense of when that might be.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Greenblatt, on that note, just for the record, again, the council has no idea of any updates on these RFPs. So when you ask the mayor to share this with the public, hopefully the council will have had an opportunity to provide input by that point as well. But as we sit here, the council knows nothing about this.
Right, I appreciate that. So the community should truly understand that, you know, to bump into a council person on the street and start rattling off and asking questions and maybe complaining, that really the question should go to mayor and the municipality. Really. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Sorry, that was bothering me. Oh, was it been Nancy? Good catch.
Nancy Meadow, Ocean Park condominiums. I'm just requesting from the 4 council members, you just need to legislate every little thing that goes on here. More importantly, every little thing that doesn't go on here, and every protocol that would be standard and what I would consider, if we're not a municipality, would really be considered a small business. So my things, I have mentioned most of this before. The rec sign. Nothing posted since June. That's unacceptable to me. I brought up what I found to be an offensive caution tape around the window in the Borough Hall foyer months ago. Well, not months ago, Monday after Thanksgiving is when I noticed it. So the meeting there, that's still there. Website has the next meeting for this chamber, this group. 2/28 from 8 AM to 6 PM. That's pretty unacceptable to me. For somebody who wants to cut meetings short. This is all indications of people that don't do their jobs. The people who don't do their jobs take their instructions from management, and that's what pisses me off. And here we go, since August 2022, I've tried to find out from this body and others what financial and guidance we received and or requested from the county, state, federal governments, as well as our supportive staffs. Or subcontractors, how you'd like to call them. I received no answers, just dead silence. We all tend to know what that means. So then I decided to.
What's the topic that you didn't state what topic you were looking for?
Oh,
Sorry.
pardon, Mike, sorry.
Okay,
thank
I'm
you.
sorry. I'm sorry.
No, thank you for pointing that out. Just assume that everybody's heard this and is sick to death over it. So I've decided to put it in writing. I've now sent 3 letters and I've gotten 3 responses. And this is what I've learned, and I want the record to know this. We are the sole payer. We floated a bond for $1 million for a portion of the payment. We are not in possession of any records for any requests. And the reason is because we didn't seek any. Now, the last statement comes from a letter from our attorney, because this was sent on as an open request, which I didn't do. And now our open attorney, I've just learned, is also our labor negotiator, labor attorney.
No,
And he informed me,
that's not the case.
well, whoever this is.
Not to cut you off, Nancy.
Not the case.
Our open attorney-
Our Oprah attorney is Dominic Gianni.
Same firm, but it's not the same firm.
Well,
Same firm.
okay,
Firm.
here's the letterhead.
Want you to
Get
understand.
this on Zoom, here, got this, get the letterhead there. Thank you. He's pointed out that I have repeatedly asked. Yes, I have. Good that he knows that. Because all it would have taken is someone in this meeting to say, we didn't ask for any help. And the bottom line is, he considers this a closed matter. It is not, because in every letter I sent was always why. So here it is, we didn't ask for help, $1 million. Why? And may I say that all of these outflow pipes are all falling apart. So are we gonna have a protocol to, what do we do when there's a problem? Are there steps we should take? Should we contact risk management? Beaches all belong to the state of New Jersey, it is a state problem. I think, okay, so I now need to, and they're gonna bill us because we know that this firm does nothing gratis. So I now need to reply with, it's not a closed matter because you did not answer my final question. Really? Is this the way an effective business runs? I don't understand it. I don't understand this whole workshop thing with presentations from departments. It's my understanding the only department head that is required to make a presentation is the police department. That is in his contract. It's to be monthly. I observed it 2 months in all these years that I've been coming here. I resent to have these other people who are not paid to do it, to wait, who have to spend their own time coming here. Or our support personnel in those departments, are they gonna get comped? And may I say also regarding, I forgot that this is the clincher, the letter from the firm of Eric and Bernstein Associates. It is my understanding that Mr. Marco is our acting business administrator. He emailed her borough administrator.
Yep.
So that attention to detail is another person that is not serving us well.
Thank you. Yes.
Casey Davidson, 304. I want to follow up, the last meeting I asked about the house that was on Fourth Avenue. That they were building a side wraparound top deck. And I was told it was gonna go to the land use. But I found out that the homeowners had to retain their own lawyer. So, I mean, I don't know anything about the construction office or, I'll admit that, but I just am thinking logically, because I'm a human being that would think logically, why couldn't the construction office just rescind the approval? I don't know if that's Mr. Cannon or.
Why can't the
Why
zoning,
couldn't the, or zoning, why couldn't they just rescind the approval rather than,
then you'd have a lawsuit from the other side, so it's really one way or the other.
so if the borough makes a mistake,
In a zoning situation, you're caught in the middle. You
so
have
you
two
have to
interested
retain
parties.
your own lawyer?
So,
And they can then sue the borough for those costs, I guess?
well, if you're the applicant, right, and you have a valid issued approval rescinded, you have a claim. If you're an objector and you don't believe the approval was issued validly, you have a claim. So once you get into that situation, it's really a no-win situation for the borough. One way or another, you can flip a coin and do it either way. It's not gonna be good either way.
So this is similar to what happened on Evergreen and Januzzi case. And similar in the sense that
In the same legal, yeah, the rubric I just described to you was the
Right.
same, yeah. It was, the Nardos are gonna be upset, the Januzzi's are gonna be upset, there's gonna be no way around that.
but the issue stems from the approval that was given in the construction office.
The zoning office, but
On
yes,
zoning. So the mistake is made there, so I guess the mistake is made once, and so you think, well, we know better. So what is put in place to not make those mistakes again? I guess. That's the
I can guarantee you the zoning officer knows exactly how it works out. I mean, you know,
They
I would also-
Too, with the
different zone,
evergreen.
literally a different, for 3 people
But it's
ago.
the same ordinance, it's the same. Like,
This is far more common than you would think. It comes up a lot in towns like this or towns like Rumson or Fairhaven. Because the property values are, you know, people have a bigger stake, you know, if you're living, you know, a house that's $200,000 in the middle of the county somewhere. And you're not as close to your neighbor as you are at a beach town. It doesn't come up as often, but I have to tell you that I've seen, was the borough attorney for Fairhaven. Happened there, I was the borough attorney for Belmar, it happened there. Whenever you have high property values like this, people are apt to challenge things that the neighbors are doing because the stakes are high.
well, they challenge it because it's against the ordinance. So
So I don't know. the
that's
specific
the
facts of the
thing,
case.
so.
But I've seen it with the zoning officer ended up being correct, the zoning officer ended up being incorrect, you know,
Because this puts land use, you know, in a bad position, because now if they say yes, everybody else is gonna say, well, now they got to do it, so opens the floodgates.
And that's not how land use works. Every property is unique and the land use board considers each one separately. So it's not a precedent
But you
issue.
know what's gonna happen, I mean, just in general. people
I mean,
are gonna say-
obviously, you know, it goes without axiomatic that not, you know, getting in a situation to begin with is the best. I'm just telling you that, you know, before, you know, you throw the bureaucrat under the bus, this is not an uncommon problem in many places. That's all I'm telling. I'm not telling you it's right, it's wrong, who's right, who's wrong. I'm just telling you this. I was trained well. Like Villanova University, Wildcats.
I didn't say that, I just said throw the oil in.
Say it, stay.
Jack Temple, 103 Fourth Avenue, Bradley Beach, of course. This is about the church complex 319 Lorraine. I'd like to respond to some, I wrote this down for last week, I had a little problem trying to get on the Zoom. And so I had time to put this, get the thoughts down the way I wanted to sound. I'd like to respond to some recent news coverage and letters to the editor regarding the church complex at 319 Lorraine, which I feel are misleading and incorrect. When it was acquired by the township a couple of years ago, the reigning business administrator was quoted as saying it was a gem. Seemingly everybody was on board to implement then a community center, a centrally located pearl within this gem, within this oyster known as Bradley Beach. Then came an abrupt split, perhaps coincidentally, that the Cinema Labs proposal appeared. The church, with its 122-year history and renowned architect, this cultural property was shoved to the back burner. The powers had other ideas indeed and created a projected formula of inflated tax increases and capital expenditures guaranteed to spare the owners the debt. The architect's comments about the positive virtues of restoring the church made in February 2022 would have been most helpful, but instead they were conveniently blurred. There are many unique aspects to the church and its history. What's more, people who had a vision for what it was and could be were frozen out from visiting the church complex. What was needed was undiluted, full-throated support by the mayor and the town council to get behind a campaign to contact foundations, corporations, and individuals to contribute to a very, very worthwhile project. As an example, what Jackie Kennedy did to preserve the Grand Central Station. But no, now we're looking at the Biazzi Center, a very mediocre building at best. Too bad, as we could have had something for posterity. We had an opportunity to elevate Bradley Beach above ordinary beach town status. And lift it proudly to become a Monmouth County star and tourist destination. We had the goods to make it work. Thank you.
Thank you. On the board, who we have on the board?
Herb Kenny?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I have several questions. Regarding the new format of this meeting, Mr. Mayor, is the intent that we will never see a bills list during the workshop section?
We see the bills list once a month.
Well, I mean, that's, if you're gonna do that then I strongly recommend that you triple the amount of time you expect from public opinion. If this is attempt to hide, these crazy expenses, we'd like the answer to it. Next question. Are we ever gonna meet the CFO?
Yes, you will.
When?
Within the next few meetings, because we have a corrective action plan from the audit that he would present. We're gonna have a budget workshop and hearing, so in the coming couple of months, you will be able to meet him.
Well, I mean, it's a little crazy, like we're paying this gentleman, I understand he's part-time, but it is interesting to hear it say corrective action. Is that for the 2022 audit?
Yes, he's,
Okay, good.
he's not a part-time employee, he's a shared service. It's a
Well,
little
I
bit
understand, but we have limited hours, correct? Anyway, quick question regarding the CFO, asking for the incremental 1.8 million in the bond potential loan. What can that extra 1.8 million be used towards? Is it only capital projects, or is it could be used to offset budget expenses, or where do we go with that 1.8 million?
We're not going to borrow the bond that we're looking for is for projects, specific projects, and once again, I believe that was an authorization level. We've been able to refine that down, so I'm confident we'll be able to answer that question for the council within the next day.
Well, I mean, it seems a little strange. 1.8 million is quite a bit of money for a town like Bradley Beach that we don't have enough visibility to that. But anyway, but that cannot be used towards to drive down any potential budget increase that could approach another 13.2%. This is capital, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Back to the Biazzi Center. The last meeting we were at, the company from Morris County that DBA and everybody else, multiple names. Would you say that they did a good job on the project, and were closets and things like that covered in the work that they did?
Yeah, they did a good job.
Okay, that's on record.
Yeah.
Okay, don't bat your eyes, because I've heard of multiple instances where closets were not inspected, things were thrown out, and a lot of potentially good things like Historical Society material was damaged, but that's okay. Last thing, I'd like to
I think you're misinformed. What's your last thing?
Okay. Thank you. Last question, I'd like to thank Mr. Gubitosi for bringing up the idea of not moving ahead forward with projects on Main Street until the sewers and things are done. I've been having a very good discussion with Ms. DeMarco regarding the Bradley Boulevard pooling issue, which is it's been sort of interesting. I'm not going to go through all the discussions I had with Ms. DeMarco, but it is amazing that we've now had to pay another $45,000 to fix the pooling project, but we've already dug up the road once for the water lines. We then did phase 1 sewer, and we never figured out to correct that. But amazingly, we always knew that there was a problem there. So, you know, before we start, you know, moving on to phase 6 and 7, wherever you want to go to, I strongly recommend that we work with the borough engineer to really understand where the problems are so we can fix them once instead of the third time. You know, we're up to about 400 and I think my last count was $493,000 in overage from sewer projects. But it would be nice if we could get all these projects fixed when we know there's a problem to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes. Don Greenberg,
Hi, Don Greenberg, 302 Park Place Ave. It just baffles me, I guess it's a comment and a question. How can you have a resolution for almost $12 million and not have the CFO available either in person or on Zoom, not have the BA available either in person or on Zoom, excuse me, the acting BA, and not have the bond attorney available either in person or in Zoom? I mean, why weren't they here, Mr. Mayor? I mean, this is a 12 million freaking dollars. So, this isn't pocket change.
But unfortunately, I'm confident that the numbers are good.
That wasn't my question. My question was, why aren't they here?
I'm trying to answer your question. The business of the borough, the acting borough administrator, unfortunately, had a death in the family. She was trying to get back up here for this meeting. I did not opt to have the CFO or the bond attorney come. There was a question that came up on this that I thought I answered on Monday. The council asked me a question. I sent them out the detail. Obviously, they wanted more detail. We'll provide that tomorrow.
Yeah, I think going forward, the proper approach would be when you're talking about millions of dollars, and let me repeat that, millions of dollars, that an expert, and with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, you're not an expert on bonds, okay?
Well, I never would say I am.
Well, I don't think you are, or else you would have had the CFO here. That the CFO should be here, or somebody who knows the law on it, somebody who knows the total detail on it, because we really weren't given any detail tonight. I believe that that person should be here before asking the council to vote on it and kind of backing them into a corner, as it were, where if they don't vote on it, we might not be able to get any of the money. So I think the planning on this could be better. And I get Meredith had a death in the family that can't be avoided. But, our mystery CFO could have been here. And I think that's a failing on your part for not having him here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anybody else? Yes. Yep.
Sorry, 116 Brook Avenue. At just about all the meetings, at some point, someone asks a question and the answer turns out to be, we'll have to get back to you on that, or we'll talk about that offline. I'm pretty sure that the answer to the questions is of interest to everyone. Attending the meeting, every resident in the town. Is there a way that the question and then the answer could be posted on the website, in one of the newsletters, something so that we can,
Yeah, we can
so
include
that
them
we
in the minutes.
can all
Yeah,
learn that information?
yeah, we can include it in the minutes.
For the next meeting.
Well, no, they'd be the minutes of this meeting.
Right, I understand that, but when you say we'll have to get back to you on that, that means it's not in the minutes of this meeting, it's in the future because you have to research it. So once you have the answer to the question and you get back to the one person, is there a way that we can all get that answer so that we can all have that information?
Yeah, I understand your question and I
The
thought,
minutes aren't in what the public's receives, the minutes that we approve, the public don't get those
Right,
minutes.
but the next set of minutes, once they're approved, they are posted.
Oh, well, they go get posted.
But will the answer be in there?
As long as it's given to me to put in the minutes, absolutely.
Oh, okay, that was my question.
yeah, we can do that.
I guess a question for Mr. Cannon, though. Greg, if the question is asked during this meeting, but the answer is delivered outside of this meeting, can that answer be included in this meeting's minutes?
It's at your pleasure, they're your minutes, so you can do it that way. I mean, there's a rider to this. These documents are detailed as to the purposes for that money has to be used. You can't get approval from the MCIA. So there has to be a submission with a list of items.
No, I don't think we're talking about that. I think just in general terms.
Oh, you just mean general terms?
Yeah.
You post the document. My point is you can just post the document on the website. Tell people that it's there.
Yeah.
I know almost everyone in this room checks everything on the website, here at every meeting.
I just want to make sure we're coming up with a solution that works legally, legally, is it okay? I'll just ask it again to make sure we're on the same page. If we if the question is asked by the public in this meeting. And we say, we'll get back to you, and we do, we commit to doing that, we do. But mayor sounds the gavel, meeting adjourned, a day later, 2 days later, we get the answer. It makes the minutes that of this meeting that gets published a week later. Is it okay that we're answering that
I'm
in
not sure,
the
the minutes are
minutes?
supposed to be a reflection of what happens here, so if the answer didn't come out here, I'm not sure that that's the best way to do it, but.
Well,
There's an underlying document for what we're talking about, you could just post.
Can we use a Facebook page instead or something?
No, I would not recommend a Facebook page. I would say we could footnote the minutes with the responses. We could
Which has
probably
been done
put-
before,
What's that?
which
have,
that has
Erica?
been done before.
What, footnote the minutes?
Yeah, I've been given stuff to put in the minutes that that occurred at a meeting that were approved at the next meeting.
I'm not sure that's,
We'll come
Good
up with a
practice.
solution,
It's
but
up
I
to you
think we
guys.
can footnote the minutes.
Okay, and if not, will we get some sort of information?
We'll come up with a
as opposed
solution.
to footnoting the minutes
Yeah,
where we
we'll
can
come
get
up with a
answers?
solution. Yeah, yes, we will come up with a solution.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Beth Kepler, 504 Central Avenue here in Bradley Beach. I would like to take this opportunity to address an issue that I believe is important to make a distinction between what is a bully and what is righteous indignation. A bully is someone who seeks to harm, intimidate, or coerce someone perceived as vulnerable. Righteous indignation, however, is also called righteous anger. It's an anger that is primarily motivated by a perception of injustice or other profound moral lapse. Oftentimes, telling inconvenient truths is perceived as bullying because criminals don't like being exposed. When citizens know the facts and are fed up with the lies, they are often mislabeled as bullies. It's people over big money PACs, it's people over powerful developers who are trying to take over our community. Speaking out is the only way to save our borough and to stop the criminal network targeting Bradley Beach. In fact, it is our duty as citizens to speak out and to use our voices to defend our town and our leaders who are standing up for us against these criminals. We will have your back while you continue to fight for us and our way of life. Anger is the birthplace of change. You cannot correct what we are unwilling to confront, and what you permit will always continue. Our hope for a better future lies not in ridding ourselves of righteous anger, which channels towards positive, productive changes. Anger tells us that there has been a violation of some sort. It definitely has its place, and righteous anger is not only acceptable, it is necessary. That concludes my statement on that. And in regard to the passing of this bond, I have to say, it reminds me very much and likens to the let's pass the bill and then we'll see what's in it. That was the first thing that came into my mind. And I would like to tip my hat to Madam President for being willing to take a stand in this matter. Because this is not how you run a government. And you're throwing around millions of dollars like they're nickels and dimes. And it's our tax money that will be paying that money back. You don't even have, you may not be an expert, with all due respect, about bonds, but you don't even know the rate. Do you know the rate? Even something as simple as a rate.
I know what the rate was in the fourth quarter. I don't want to quote if the rate shifted between the fourth quarter and this BAN.
Do you know how lame you look? Do you realize how ridiculous you look? It's embarrassing. It doesn't bring me any pleasure to stand here and say that. With all due respect, as far as my heart is concerned, Councilman Gubitosi, you are my mayor. I don't care what the vote says. You have been a leader, and you are the reason that we are going to actually maybe someday, hopefully, get to the bottom of this number problem that we seem to be having. But there's criminality afoot.
I'm not-
Excuse, I'm not done.
We're getting close.
No, not yet.
Well,
No, not even close.
I'm sorry, you know, let's have that level of civility and decency.
Are you familiar, because Mr. Cannon can get you to the rules.
Right.
Because you have, my civility is not required. Did you not just pay attention? I can make you a copy,
Right.
righteous anger.
Right.
I have a right to be angry. You're spending, squandering, and embezzling my money.
Well, you're accusing me of embezzlement.
Yes, I am.
I'd be very careful with that.
Well, I have every right to. I tried, see, this is where righteous anger comes in. I addressed it the right way, the way it was supposed to be done. I wrote a letter, citizens signed it, sent it to the Attorney General's office. Radio silence, crickets. But I have a right
So
to
that,
stand here, and if it's my opinion that you're a criminal
So what-
and you're embezzling
what does
my
that-
money, I have every right to say so. Too bad, so sad. You're pathetic.
thank you. Yes.
Thomas J. Cohen, 612 Third Avenue. I'm just a little puzzled, Mayor. The audit was due June 30th of 2020, the 2022 audit was due June 30th of 2023. You're given an extension by the DCA to September 30th, 2023. You are 229 days past the original date and 137 days after the extended date. Okay, now tonight, you say we're gonna meet the CFO because he's gonna submit a corrective action plan. Which tells me, we got a problem. If we need a corrective action plan,
Every audit requires a corrective action plan. It's a requirement of the audit.
but now we gotta see what it is, see what it says, how many items.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
it
I'm not trying to
indicates,
understand your
it
point.
indicates that there's issues.
No, it indicates that part of the process, the question that was asked was, when will we meet the CFO? The CFO presents the corrective action plan. That is the process.
How many more days is that gonna be from the 139 and we're over? Do we know when the presentation's gonna be? It's-
I said within the next few meetings, yeah.
But, I need specifics. When you say soon.
I'm not gonna give you a
next few
specific
meetings,
that I don't know
well,
the specific.
You
I'm
can't give a
sorry.
specific on a rate either. It's unbelievable, but I want to address a couple things Mr. Matos said. He accused my rents of being fictitious.
No, Mr. Matos was addressing us. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I know, he was looking right at me when he said it, okay?
And I asked him to address me.
I paid my own for my own garbage cans. I'm just saying that those would be nice garbage cans for everyone to buy. Okay, also, I fill out the county forms for the county tax board every year. And the tax assessor calls me and says, are these rents real? And I say, yeah, they are. He says, wow, you're a pretty honest guy because they're higher than everybody else. So there's a difference, and I want the public to understand. Mr. Matos is comparing a tomato to an orange. He's saying my residential house. Residential houses are assessed differently. Okay, commercial properties are assessed differently. So he needs to make that distinction and really come up here with some bullets, because it's a shame that he has to cast those aspersions. But now I had a question. We're paying the police chief salary based on a 2024 contract, approximately $17,000 a month. And now it's been November, December, January, February. We're paying him for a no-show job. Do we know when this ends? Mayor, do we know when this ends?
Yeah, I'm not commenting on personal matter.
Okay,
The investigation is not within our control. We do not know when it ends.
okay,
It ends when the investigating authority tells us it's over.
okay, well, okay, I have a comment on that too now. So I just wanna make it be known that September 27th of 2021, I filed a complaint about the police chief and his behaviors in this room. Okay? Sent a letter, and you were CC, Mayor, and I got a letter from Miss Kim Humphrey, and it said, I will need to forward this email to the Borough Council and the Borough Council. Here in Bradley Beach, I am not the appropriate authority for the police chief. Per the Borough Administrative Code, the mayor and council are the appropriate authority. Well, we thought we had this BA who knew what was going on, but she's 100% wrong. She's not the authority. So the authority is the prosecutor's office. So my rights were denied by Ms. Humphrey and you, Mayor Fox. And we probably wouldn't be in the situation we're in now if this was addressed then. So the Office of the Attorney General, Internal Affairs and Policy Procedures 5.1.8. Complaints against law enforcement executive or a member of the executive senior management team may originate from a member of the public or from an employee of the agency. As such, complaints shall be documented and referred to the county prosecutor's office for review. My complaints, that never happened.
Yeah, it did.
No, it didn't.
Yeah, it did.
No, you're incorrect. Those were my second complaints, which I took exactly to the prosecutor's office. These complaints were ignored by you, and my rights were violated. Just want to let you know, these things could have been taken care of a lot sooner if people were proactive in running our government. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
William Shook, 110 Fifth Avenue, Bradley Beach. Looking at the borough's website, I happened to notice with the Shade Tree Commission, they had a meeting in August of 2023. At that meeting, they and there was no other meeting from August all the way to January. But at that August meeting, it was discussed to have 2 meetings per month possibly. And that they would look into it, so on and so forth, and that's what made me think about it. Wait a minute, you're looking at 2 meetings a month, but yet from August to January, you had no meetings. And then at that same meeting, they were discussing as far as the financial report, that there were what you would call discrepancies, and it would be researched. Okay, fine, I'm looking and there's absolutely nothing. Go to the January meeting,
January of when?
2024, which is the very next meeting they had that's posted. And in there, it says absolutely nothing about the twice a month meeting, has absolutely nothing about the budget. The only thing it says is the Shade Tree has account is $15,057.74. Nothing about the dispute or anything else like that. Can anybody let me know what happened here? What happened?
I can follow up with the commission chair.
And Mr. Mayor, I assure you that the Shade Tree Commission met between August of last year and January. Those meetings somehow were not posted to the website. That's a different issue, but I can assure you.
That's what I'm asking. Has there been meetings?
They have, and I'm telling you, there have been meetings.
Okay, well, it's not posted.
And Mr. Shuck, I'm also aware that the discrepancies you're referencing were about those in and out of the Shade Tree Trust. And my understanding is they got them resolved with working with the administration.
What were they?
I can't recall the specifics, Mr. Mayor, maybe you recall? No?
No.
Yeah, the money was spent out of the Shade Tree Trust. Actually, you probably know, right?
I believe like some honor me trees were sponsored. It went to the wrong account and it was missing from their account, but it was located and put into the trust.
I mean, the Shade Tree Commission was owed money that ended up someplace else in the borough, but they straightened it out. It
That
took,
was the discrepancy.
Yes.
yeah, it took them a while to track that down and figure it out, but they did.
Okay, on a different note. I want to go to the health department in Monmouth County. We had a little meeting and stuff, and they provided me with a bunch of COVID-19 test kits, so if anyone wants them, they're here. Help yourself. The other thing is they expire May 14th of this year, 2024.
Thank you, Bill.
Could use them.
Thank you.
They're here, they're there.
And I think if you check online, the expiration dates, you can
Yeah,
actually
they-
extend
all you have to
those.
do is look up the lot number and.
Yeah, because they typically are longer than that.
No, this,
There's a-
that's the deadline thing.
Okay, thank you.
I checked with them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Rick Bartolome, 116 Newark. My pet peeve or question, where are we on the concession RFPs?
They are out. They're out and about right now.
They're out and about, so I can see them on the
Yeah, they're on the website.
Website?
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Dr. Tom McGuire, 610 Brenling Avenue. I was hoping Mr. Shook wouldn't speak yet, just because I wanted to ask him to see if he could comment on the RFPs and where we are with the churches. I know he's on the land use, since we really didn't get anywhere with that. And I really hope that at our next meeting, we can really move forward with figuring out what we're doing at the church and have all the information. And the other thing is, it's Mayor, it's not the most comfortable thing standing up here. This isn't, and when you have a concern, and you have people staring at you, it just doesn't feel great, and. I want you to know-
I didn't hear the last thing you said about what? One more time?
It does not feel great. When we're up here and we're trying to talk. And we get in, okay, thank you, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. It's rude, you're cutting us off. And I just want to make sure that you understand what you're doing is what's called viewpoint discrimination. And I hate doing this, I feel like I'm Mr. Dictionary, I want to give definitions of things, but viewpoint discrimination is when you cut us off, when you don't like it. If you want to comment, if you don't like, if I start saying something and you're like, yeah, well, wait, you don't get to do that. You can do that after we're done talking. This is public comment, not public comment, and the mayor gets a rebuttal because he feels uncomfortable and he's got to defend himself. You don't get to do that. So if I want to say, shut up, hey, shut up, I can do that. It says it in here. I'm protected to do that. So if someone stands up here like that to us, and she says things that are very positive to you, and I know it's uncomfortable. Everyone in the audience feels that it's uncomfortable. But you have to give her credit that she don't stand up here and say things. Not many people do this. I mean, you can count on your hands how many people come up here. It's not many people. So I just wanted to make you aware. I also wanted to make you aware that the words are vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials are protected speech. We have enough lawsuits in this town. You are opening yourself up for a lawsuit every time you try to cut us off, shorten our time, or say, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. When you say, okay, thank you, that's you cutting us off, and to someone's up here, you're trying to say my time is. My time is not up until my time's up, the timer goes off. So please just stop doing it. They're done, just let it be done. Let them walk away and say, thank you. Not, okay, thank you, every time. I know it sounds ridiculous, it's that I'm saying, because that's what it sounds to us in the audience. You cut off an elderly person, you cut off a person who's talking caustic to you. I'm sorry that it happens, but it does happen. The other thing I just wanted to make aware, because you did say something that she's calling you a criminal. The past president has been called a criminal. Obama has been called a criminal. I'm pretty sure there was an entire chance to lock Hillary Clinton up. They called her a criminal. We can call you that. There's defamation law to do. I know you're not an expert in bonds. I know you're not aware, but I think you should talk to Mr. Cannon about what we can say about you and what we can call you. We're allowed to do mudslinging. We're allowed to say things that might even be untrue. We are protected under that law. We can do those things. So I just want you to understand, again, it's not comfortable here. My wife, when she stands up here, her heart races. She hates it. We do not want to talk. We don't. We want this town to run smoothly. We want things to run great, but you make it difficult. So it's hard for us to sit back and shut up and not say anything. So when we say something and you try to cut us off, it is very, very, very uncomfortable. So I ask you, I think I did this like 2 years ago. Please stop doing it. Just shut up and take it. You got to. I'm not cursing at you. If I was, that is not protected speech. I cannot call you very, very bad words. I want to sometimes, but I don't. So please just, you need to temper your tone and your speech to us. We do not have to do it to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's no other comments. I just comment to the original comment I made earlier today, and that's you know, we're going to disagree on things. We're going to have a different perspective. We should try to gauge how we speak to each other. We're all neighbors. This isn't national politics. And my reactions when I say, okay, thank you, fast, according to the last person up, I might say that fast, but you know, sometimes it just feels like that is what needs to be said. So I thank you. I think I'll move to the next agenda item, which is adjournment. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
No, well, I mean, a minute for a tournament is quite a long time. I mean,